Day of the Teacher was this week on Tuesday, and this is National Nurses Week. So could I have everyone join me for the flag salute? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here. I know it's an exciting night, but I just want to make sure everyone heard that this is a special week. It is classified as School Employee Week for California, and on the national level, Tuesday was Day of the Teacher, and this is National Nurses Week. So we have lots of people to thank in our district for all the wonderful things they do for our kids. Could we have roll call, please, Erin?
Yes. Trustee Leong.
Here.
Trustee Manhattan.
Here.
Trustee Chow. Absent. Trustee Lu.
Here.
Trustee Vogel.
Here. Next, we have board agenda approval. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thanks, Jerry. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Satish. Roll call vote, please, Erin.
Yes. Trustee Leong.
Capture everyone's attention.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye. The first item we have on the agenda is the recognition of our California Classified School Employees Week. Do we have a presentation about that? Mike?
I thought that music was my walk-up music.
Great, Aaron.
All right, well, this gives me great pleasure to talk about the week of May 19th through the 25th. And this is a recognition of the California Classified School Employees. And the background on this is that Cupertino Union School District, we recognize that the valuable service and commitment of its classified employees are a significant factor in the educational excellence achieved by the district. Classified employees working collaboratively with certificated staff play an integral part in the district's ability to provide high-quality education. Instructional programs meet the safety and welfare needs of the students and promote a caring and nurturing school environment. The time, talent, and expertise of our classified staff enhances the quality of the life of students in the district, and the board wishes to underscore the value of classified staff in the fulfillment of the district's primary mission: to develop creative, exemplary learners with the skills and enthusiasm to contribute to a constantly changing global society. The district hereby joins the state of California and proclaims May 19th through the 25th, 2024 as Classified School Employee Week in CUSD to honor our classified staff whose commitment and dedication contribute so notably to the quality of public education in our community and the quality of the work environment of the district. So please join me in congratulating the California Classified Employees.
Next, we have May Classified Employee of the Month. Mike, I think you're back on.
Lucky me, I'm still rolling here. All right, so May's Classified Employee of the Month is someone from Eisenhower Elementary, and I'm gonna. And so before I welcome up Dipti Samant, the school site instructional technology specialist, I'm going to say some nice things that her fellow workers at the school said about her, and then I'm going to let the principal come on up and say some things about her. And so I'm hopeful that we don't repeat everything that we want to say that's great about Dipti. So Dipti's ability to problem solve is unmatched. She will work through any tech-related problem at our campus and always able to find solutions. She's always willing to help anyone who's in need. Often stopping what she's doing to put the staff first. Dipti loves solving tech problems for us. She will often appear as soon as we hit send. Before we hit send on any email about our issue. She often fixes an issue that was only mentioned in an offhanded conversation. As the rock star that she is, Dipti works well with others. She's kind and friendly and makes sure all questions are answered and issues resolved. Dipti is a wonderful example of a team player. She's a huge support in getting new staff what they need before being asked. Dependable is Dipti's middle name. She remembers each unique issue and always follows through on request. Her dedication is unmatched. Every school in CUSD is lucky to have a Dipti on staff. Dipti consistently demonstrates an exceptional commitment to go above and beyond in providing support and guidance to students and staff. If you have a question, she's in your classroom within minutes. She's unable to answer a question. She works with the district team to get the answers the same day. She is one of the hardest workers on campus. She approaches every day and every question with a smile. She'll go above and beyond to make time for anyone with a problem. So at this time, I'd like to bring up Principal Howie. Where are you at, Howie? Come on up. You want Dipti to come up too?
Yes, please. Dipti, come on up. Hold on. So those are some hard words to top. Dipti, you've been a great addition to Eisenhower. I think the staff, the team really appreciates all your hard work, the responsiveness. Every morning I come in 7:15, 7 o'clock. Dipti is in the office. The 3 or 4 of us that are there, Shalja and Banu, and we're all powwowing. And I mean, it's just a great way to start the day. And again, the team and we all appreciate everything you do on a day-to-day basis for the teachers and for our kids. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to embarrass Dipti? Just me? Okay.
Dipti, thank you for all you do this. This is a certificate of appreciation. And Evan wrote also our vocalist and women also congratulate you. So thank you.
Hold on, Howie. Picture time. Yeah. You're not getting off that easy.
Oh, I guess then do a song. Jerry, you got it. I'll fix this tonight. Right? 1, 2.
Come on up if you want to take pictures.
Next on the agenda is the California Distinguished Schools Recognition, and for that, I'm turning this over to our superintendent, Stacy Yao.
Thank you, President Vogel. I am super excited and just want to extend a welcome to all of our guests. This is just an amazing audience here. Tonight is really a special night for us. And having all of you here come and help recognize our distinguished middle schools this year. Today marks a momentous occasion as we celebrate the remarkable dedication and outstanding accomplishments of our educators, students, and staff from Miller Middle School, Kennedy Middle School, and Hyde Middle School. Distinguished schools are selected based on multiple measures to identify schools based on their performance on the state indicators specified on the California School Dashboard. This year, schools were selected with a focus on demonstrating excellence and growth in academic achievement and ensuring a positive school climate. Being recognized as a distinguished school is a testament to the commitment to excellence that permeates every facet of our educational community. This prestigious designation not only reflects the hard work and perseverance of our students, but also underscores the collaborative efforts of our teachers, administrators, support staff, and parents. Through innovation, dedication, and a strong commitment to the success of every student, we are not only preparing them for academic excellence, but also equipping them with the skills, knowledge, and values necessary to thrive in an ever-changing world. And a little bit of a bragging, there were 243 middle and high schools that were selected as distinguished schools throughout the state of California. We have 3 of them. We have the most schools of any district in the county, Santa Clara County. So a little bragging. In addition to being able to celebrate with our staff and parents, we have some very distinguished guests joining us tonight. And I think this is truly a testament and deeply appreciative of our support from throughout our entire community and our county. So at this time, I would like to introduce each of our special dignitaries, have them come up here and join me at the podium. They have a couple words that they'd like to say. They may have a certificate. And so I'd like to start by introducing representing Congressmember Ro Khanna's office, Simone Chien. Our Mayor of Cupertino, Sheila Mohan. Vice Mayor of San Jose, Rosemary Kamei. And our Santa Clara County Office of Education Superintendent, Dr. Marianne Dewan. Also at this time, I'd like to introduce our administrators from our 3 middle schools. From Miller Middle School, Principal Anu Meyer and AP Deborah Lopez. From Kennedy Middle School, Principal Gwendolyn DeWeese. And Assistant Principal Joni Orvik. From Hyde Middle School, we have our 2 assistant principals, Kathy Walsh and Jenny Kim. At this time, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Congressmember Ro Khanna's representative, Simone.
Thank you, Superintendent Yao. Such an honor to be here today on behalf of Congressman Ro Khanna. I really want to express our thanks and congratulations to Miller Middle School, Kennedy Middle School, and Hyde Middle School for this distinguished award, and to thank all the educators and support staff for their hard work. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Especially good afternoon to the Board of Trustees and the staff and parents and the Cupertino CUSD community. A big hello to all of you. It's such a pleasure to be here today, and thank you so much for inviting me. I was so excited to hear about the outstanding accomplishments of the 3 middle schools, Hyde, Kennedy, and Miller. I think we can all agree that these recognitions are a testament to the dedication of our educators, students, and the entire school community, and reflect an environment in each of these schools where learning and dedication to high standards are your priorities. As the superintendent pointed out, this is a very complicated process to get to this stage. And if you worked in government, as many of us do, everything seems complicated. So just the fact that these three schools were able to rise to the top is a fantastic accomplishment. As a parent myself, whose child went through schools in Cupertino, I couldn't be more proud of the three schools, Hyde, Kennedy, and Miller. Let us continue to support our schools, and let us continue to strive for excellence, not just in the lives of the students, but the life of our community. So thank you again, and congratulations to all who are involved in today's event.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosemary Kamei, and I have the honor of being Vice Mayor of the City of San Jose. I also represent the west side of San Jose in District 1, and I am so proud to be here today. And I want to congratulate the students, the parents, the teachers, the administration, everyone who made this possible. As a former school board member, I know how competitive it really is. And to have three schools in the district is quite an accomplishment. So I just want to say congratulations on your wonderful achievement. And I'm very, very proud. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. President Vogel, and all of the trustees, Superintendent Yao, thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. As your county superintendent of schools, it's a great privilege to honor, recognize, and celebrate alongside you the excellence that's been demonstrated by the school community here in the Cupertino Union School District. I also want to, on behalf of Trustee Tara Sri Krishnan, who represents this area, extend her congratulations to each of you as well, and an invitation where we'll be presenting individual certificates to each of the honoring schools at our June 5th celebration alongside other winners in the county. It's my distinct pleasure to celebrate the staff, the families, the leadership, and the entire community for their dedication to excellence. Many of you may not realize that the California Distinguished Schools Program has been around since 1985 and recognizes schools, only schools, that demonstrate exemplary achievements. So it is quite an honor to have schools within our county recognized. And this evening, I'm presenting to the district a proclamation, and I'd like to read just part of it. Whereas the California Distinguished Schools Program was established by the California Department of Education in 1985 and recognizes schools that demonstrate exemplary achievements and uses multiple measures in an accountability system to identify these eligible schools based on their performance and progress. And whereas the Cupertino Union School District had 3 middle schools named as 2024 California Distinguished Schools, Joaquin Miller Middle School, John F. Kennedy Middle School, and Warren E. Hyde Middle School. These middle schools will hold their distinguished school status for 2 years. So therefore, let it be resolved and proclaimed that these schools, having been named 2024 California Distinguished Schools, represent some of the best of public education in Santa Clara County. Congratulations.
I know that we have several different certificates. We were not able to, Senator Dave Cortez wasn't able to make it tonight, but he also has certificates for each of our 3 schools. So I'd like to invite our board up to join us and do some group pictures here. And once again, just so proud of all the work that we do throughout. You can see behind us, last year we had our elementary schools that received the Distinguished School, and it just continues to build on it. And it is truly due to everyone here in the audience, parents, students, staff alike. And so I am so proud to be the superintendent of this amazing district. And thank you guys for coming out tonight to help us recognize. Congratulations. Thank you again to our special guests and congratulations to our 3 schools.
Okay, congratulations again, and thank you to our dignitaries and their representatives for sharing with us in this celebration tonight. We appreciate you coming out to join us. Our next agenda item is the recognition of California Day of the Teacher. So again, I'll turn this over to the superintendent.
You. So I will kick us off and then I will turn it over to Mike Gelber. And again, this is just another special occasion. And it just feels, such a joyous time to get to recognize the great things that are going on in school. And tonight we're paying a tribute to our teachers as they are selected by their peers. We're going to recognize a teacher from each of the schools, and then we'll announce our CUSD Teacher of the Year. And it really is just inspiring. These are exceptional educators. All of our educators are exceptional and they were selected by their peers, which I think speaks highly. And it really is. These are just people that go above and beyond and inspire, and they shape the minds of our future. And we see that with our accomplishments from our students, and it comes back to the teachers. So please join me in recognizing the teachers, and I will turn it over to Mr. Gelber.
All right, thank you. Before I get started, we have an awesome video that we would like to play to introduce our exceptional educators. So I will turn this over. Please turn your attention to this screen and we will get started.
A good teacher is really nice and funny and cool. One of the most thoughtful and detail-oriented teachers I've known in my life. A good teacher is when they're funny, when they help you out with a lot of things, and when they're encouraging you.
A lot of room for learning how to be kind and how to love each other, and that is a huge part of our curriculum and a huge passion of mine. It's how to be a good human and love the sense of wonder and joy and excitement. As soon as you open your classroom door, they burst through the door happy, ready to learn, ready to engage with friends, engage with you. And so it's just the best feeling in the world to have that excitement for your classroom.
I like the growth that I see as a year. So my favorite subject is teachers writing. And so I like to see the growth of the writing throughout the course of the school year. Yeah, I just enjoy everything that happens in the classroom every day. They're funny and quirky, and you never know what's going to happen.
Project-based learning is also very real life focused and very focused on finding solutions, problem solving, very student centered and student driven. And so I just think, when kids are the ones driving their learning and when they can apply it to their real life, they're automatically more engaged and they can bring those lessons with them. I love being a teacher because I love building relationships with the kids and just creating an environment where they can feel successful and happy and safe. I have always loved working with kids, and I think just seeing their progress over the year and just the fun that they have, and just remembering that as adults, we look back and like, 5th grade was the best year ever. And so it just is like getting to provide that year for the kids is motivating for me. I think remembering that we can lean on one another and we can be kind to one another is important for them to foster that now, so that as adults, they really provide more for the world.
Started volunteering at my daughter's school. It really inspired me, to work with the kids. It was so much fun, and also helping them really gave me that satisfaction of that I'm really helping the student in getting to their potential and unlocking their potential of working towards the success. And I really am proud of my kids when they reach that point. So it really gives me happiness to help the kids.
It's not easy, but it is fun and it's a challenge. It's something you do every day. The kids, they're amazing. And this year, I have had the pleasure of having so many brand new language learners. This is, I think, probably the most I've ever had And just to see their growth from August till now is amazing. It's inspiring.
You're not just teaching them the curriculum, you're teaching them to be your own parent, teaching here. And preparing them to be a person in the world. It's a job, but it's also your whole being. These kids, I strongly believe, will be our leaders, and so I feel really lucky to serve and hope that I'm making a difference as they move on to the next grade and to the next part of their life.
I love that they are so excited to come to school every day. They literally will line up outside this room and they have the biggest smiles on their faces and they come in with a hug and just they can't wait to learn every day. And that makes me feel like I'm doing something right. To see over the years, the kids, as they get older and they come back, remember all the things that we do, the things that we learned, and it just feels like such a powerful thing to be able to impact children in this way.
So I do love to be in the team and to be working with them, learning from them. I enjoy building those relationships and from those relationships getting to teach them as well. And then they come back and we get to see them. Look, they graduated from high school. And so it's great to see where they go from where I am.
Whatever concepts or challenges that are able to just take these ideas and run with it. They're not set in their thinking yet, and so they're able to kind of see different perspectives and consider, other possibilities. And I think that's a fun part about working with them, that they are excited to learn more and do more with it.
And I think once students, comfortable with themselves and have that confidence to go about their school day and address any mental health difficulties that they may have, then their academic success just soars in time. I would say it's just the satisfaction in knowing that in some small way, I'm helping students to succeed along their path.
One of the most rewarding aspects of this job is being able to build long-term connection with students over a period of time and being able to see them grow in their communication skills, which often carry over into their academic skills as well. What continues to inspire me the most is being able to witness the incredible resilience and perseverance of my students and being able to see their confidence and self-esteem grow without.
There's the hard skills, which has to do with getting to in terms of the curriculum, but the soft skills is what connects you to them. It gives you trust, allows them to be themselves. And one of the biggest things I think is being able to see the strengths that the students have. That's really what's going to, if we do the same thing over and over again, and it's not working, it's because we're not finding that strength that we have. Strong people try to strengthen others.
I would say that you have to focus on the student and not get lost in everything else, because then it gets a little depressing. So if you just day to day really enjoy these kids, then you can just keep going. You can just keep going and not be afraid to throw things out, no matter what age you are, and go, this isn't working with today's environment. This isn't working for my students. Let's try something new.
I'm just so excited, and it's such a privilege to be part of their personal experience. The growth that they have each year is tremendous, again, from day to day or week to week. Time with my kids each day. I really think there's nowhere better to be. Their encouragement, their jokes, and just the way they learn how to care for each other.
I enjoy working with kids, and I also enjoy that every day is different. I can't do the same thing every day, so I love that every day is different. It's new, and I can change as I go. And I don't feel like things aren't working, then you can just change it as you go and make it work. So just like that, every day is different, and I can make it my own. And I love seeing the faces of when the students get something and they figure it out.
I love kindergarten every year. So from August to June every year, the children just blew. I love what I do. And every single day when I walk through the doors, I really think this is where I want to be. This is where I want to be spending my time. 5 days a week is with these little children. I love Cupertino, chosen to be in CUSD, in kindergarten. I really love it and I have a passion for it. And I feel lucky to do what I do every day.
Looking for ways to kind of create opportunities for our students, not only blue in a classroom, just to kind of get them to think about the environment outside of what they're looking at in textbooks, to see that and touch it. I think that's really important for the kids. The mindset of the students, you can do a lot of creative work with them, a lot of project-based learning, and it's amazing when you kind of set a template out or just an idea out and then they really run with it. So it's fun to see how innovative and creative they can get with that.
It's one of our favorite things about seeing what and also about the friendships that have continued from our classroom, things that they remember, some things that, when they share things that you don't even remember, but that's the best, right? I mean, I think that's part of, again, why we do what we do, it's the connections and, that's the big meaningful piece.
Every day are amazingly wonderful, every days are challenging, but every day is different. I think the biggest thing is when I see the kids, how much they've grown. Like when they are struggling with the concept and then they finally teach it to somebody else. It's not just that I got it moment, it's that I've got enough confidence, I can tell somebody else how to do this now. And I think those moments are the ones that really stick with me.
Because like just because they're the teacher, they don't like value themselves because already they're their own students, but they just keep learning their students and also like love their students equally.
That was a great video. Super inspiring. Before I get started, I would be remiss if I didn't congratulate all the hard work that the parents put in and alongside with all the hard work that the teachers put in. I mean, that combination is what makes, as you can see, all these distinguished schools awards. That's what makes our kids thrive. And also just want to throw a plug in for our CEF teacher grant program. That's always been very helpful in giving grants to our teachers. They provide $500 support grants for teacher innovation in our classroom. And if you haven't already, the grant deadline is May 17th. And so over 200 teachers have received grants this year for creative ideas to support student learning. So I want to thank CEF as well for being a partner in the success of our students. So I was just looking at the years of experience on there. I saw 1 year of experience to 30 years of experience. And I was thinking about my first year of teaching. I was still trying to figure out the bell schedule, let alone be nominated for Teacher of the Year. So this is so cool to see all this range of talent, and it makes me feel really good to be a part of it. So the background a little bit, the Teacher of the Year program provides the board and the district an opportunity to recognize individuals who have demonstrated exemplary teaching skills, talents, and accomplishments. A district committee that's made up of representatives from the Board of Education, administrators, CEA members, and parent community select the district teacher of the year based on site level, peer recommendations, and district-wide criteria. One teacher from the list below will represent the district's teaching staff for the 23-24 academic year at the county level. In addition, the district's Teacher of the Year will become a nominee for the County Teacher of the Year program. So without further ado, and we'll have time at the end of this where we can get pictures and everyone, if you brought little gifts and banners and crowns and all those things, you can bring those up and we can get those in the picture.
And Mike, let's have them all stay on
Oh,
the
yeah.
stage. Yeah.
Yeah. When we call your name, if I don't slaughter it too bad, you'll know who you are. And then you can come up and we'll set you up here and you'll wait for a group picture. And at that time, you know, we can celebrate. When we're done with that, we have some cookies and refreshments over here where we can all celebrate together. So let's get started. From Blue Hills, the nominee, Rebecca Roberts, can you please come forward? Congratulations. Okay, from Cupertino Middle School, Balbina Matier. All right, from DeVargas, Kristen Jorgensen.
Congratulations, Kristen.
All right, and I'm not sure if our representative from Dilworth is going to be here, but that is Sarah Evanshank. Okay, from Eaton, Kashubu Viriani. All right, from Eisenhower, one half of the gifted couple, Kristen Wright. I should have said the better half of the gifted. From Faria, Gretchen Dix. All right, from Garden Gate, Kathleen Lanza. Okay, from Hyde, Denise McNerney. Yeah, Denise can't be with us tonight. We can clap loud for Denise anyway. From Kennedy, Hannah Sun.
Come this way now. We're gonna go up to that other meeting.
All right, from Lawson, Yvette Raculo. All right, from Lincoln, Kinsey Robertson. All right, from McAuliffe, Eric Lee. From Miller, Carrie Emerson. More cowbell. Remember that one? All right, from Montclair, Haley Juarez. From Nimitz, Casey Martinez. Oh. Casey Martinez. Thank you for that. Now we have from Sedgwick, Anna Akamoto. From Stevens Creek, the other half, Grady Wright.
You're too tall to be down in front.
All right, from Stockmeyer, Megan Keeler. I gave you the disclaimer at first. Sorry. And last but not least, West Valley, Carolyn Corner. Okay, how do you want to do this, Sharon? Do you want to get the picture before I announce the teacher of the year? Or do you want to? All right. Keep you in suspense.
Aaron, I don't think I did a very good job of arranging, so you'll have to rearrange it.
This is the moment we've been waiting for. And I just want to tell y'all that the teacher of the year is up there. The teacher of the year is a teacher in this district too. So your district teacher of the year for 23-24 is Hannah Sun.
Sorry, I didn't know I was supposed to come forward. Just stood there. So this takes me back to 8th grade because I went to Miller. The last time I got an award from CUSD was when my 8th grade music teacher, Miss Bozer, I know some of you know her. I was sitting in the audience in 8th grade and all of a sudden she called my name for the choir award and I was like, what? So it's come full circle because now I'm teaching choir again and I'm a choir teacher. Anyhow, I'm very grateful to work on a daily basis and love my job. And I'm sure all the teachers here feel the same way. A lot of people always ask me like, Hannah, why aren't you working in tech? Or why aren't you an administrator already? And but I just really truly love being with the kids in the classroom and feel incredibly lucky that I get to teach and share the subjects I love with the best kids in the world on a daily basis. And I know some of you have heard, you know, the joke that in Cupertino, it's like teaching at Disneyland. And I love seeing these light bulb moments when you manage to change your thinking and perspective. The kids keep me energized on my toes every day. And I know I go home exhausted, as all of you do, but I'm excited to go back to work on a daily basis. And I'm so incredibly lucky to work with the best coworkers, awesome admins. My colleagues are phenomenal and they challenge me to be a better teacher. Because they're all such amazing teachers. They're so humble, so supportive, and so encouraging all the time. And they push me to be better. At Kennedy, we have villages for the kids. And I have to say that even the adults treat each other like family. So yes, I know teachers don't get paid enough, but when you can say all that about your job, you know you can't let something special like that go. And this is why I'm still in the classroom after 19 years. I want to do a special shout out to my family because I can't do my job nearly as well without a tribe of people behind me. My husband, who has to put up with me working all the time. He knows I'm a workaholic. Luckily, he's a teacher too, so he understands what it takes. My mom, who has helped us raise our kids from day one, who never complains about all she has to do to help support me and the kids, and who is a role model for me, having been a teacher herself for 25 years in Taiwan. I watched her do this work day in and day out, and often being one of the last to leave school every day. She set the bar high as a dedicated educator, and now I'm following after her footsteps. Family friends like Olivia for all the extra help you've given us from being our pandemic pod and now our forever family. And to all the teachers honored today and all the teachers in the room, thank you for your hard work. My kids are now students in CUSD, and not a day goes by do I not think about how lucky we are to have such high caliber teachers in our classroom teaching our kids. I'm so grateful to have grown up in this district and be able to continue being part of this community. Thank you.
Congratulations again to Hannah and to all the teachers of the year. And thanks to everyone for being here. We're going to break for 15 minutes for a little snack. I'm going to pound the gavel hard in 15 minutes. So if you're staying, come on back when you hear the gavel. Thank you.
Also highlight all the professional development opportunities they participate in to continue their own growth and advancement as educators. I was also so pleased tonight to see how so many of our special education educators nominated by their sites and selected by their sites. As a past teacher of the year, selected by my peers at Regnart, I know what a special honor it is to be chosen by your fellow teachers to represent the excellent teaching happening at your site. We are so fortunate as a district to have these teachers dedicating their time to our students and our families, as well as to their fellow colleagues and educators. It really strengthens my belief that we can find the right ways to keep these amazing teachers and all of our teachers. And we can also find the right ways to attract new teachers who can bring the latest pedagogy and instructional practices to our district and students. We can accomplish this by providing what our teachers need and what CEA has been asking for from our district: livable wages, class supports for our English language learners and students not meeting benchmarks for their grade levels, and smaller class sizes and caseloads for our special education and general education professionals and teachers and educators. And I want to add that Stacy Yao, our superintendent, understands the importance of CA priorities, as our joint message, which I hope was forwarded to the board, that was sent out yesterday to our members, shows. We do have a mutual commitment from our district for that, as well as what we want from our teachers. Through negotiations and discussions between CEA and the district administration over the last few years, we have made good progress and improvements in these priorities of increasing the salaries of our excellent teachers and providing the best supported learning environments for our students. These priorities that CEA has been working toward and pushing for, and the leadership of our district has begun implementing over the past few years, are so important. And we do appreciate those improvements. The pace and the amounts of these improvements, we may not agree upon all the time. However, we are mutually dedicated to our teachers, our students, and our families. I look forward to our two negotiations teams sitting down together and reaching agreement to benefit all of our CEA members, all of our employees, which will benefit all our students, each child, whole child, every child. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Next, we have public comment on items that are not on the agenda. Erin, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do. We have 6.
Okay. We'll have 3 minutes each for public comment. The board will not respond, but if you have questions, someone from the staff will get back to you. So who's first, Erin?
Our first speaker is Wala Zaytown. If you could come to the podium if you're here, or raise your hand if you're joining us virtually. Wala Zaytown, if you could raise your hand if you're joining virtually. I do not believe that speaker has joined the meeting. Our next speaker is Nicola Borisov. If you're in attendance, please come to the podium or raise your hand if joining virtually. I do not see that speaker. The next speaker is Jurgana Vandova. If you're joining, please come to the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Superintendent Yao, and fellow parents, I stand here before you today not only as a concerned parent, but also as a representative of the deeply disheartened Montclair community. The recent decision to terminate Catalyst's contract as the after-school care provider has left many of us shocked, saddened, and ultimately deeply concerned for the well-being of our children. Our primary concern is not just about the change in providers, but the manners in which this decision was made. without public discussion and seemingly driven by financial motives rather than the best interest of our children. As per the contract with Champions for providing after-school care program at Montclair, the district would receive a 25% revenue share for every child enrolled in this program. So if all of the children currently enrolled in Catalyst are forced to transition to Champions, the district will gain a significant profit of $110,000 per year. As parents, we are deeply troubled by the decision to prioritize financial gain over the educational and emotional needs of our children, as well as taking away our choice of after-school program that we pay for. Catalyst has been at Montclair for over 40 years and has very experienced, loving, and caring staff, many of which have dedicated over 20 years to our school community. In contrast, Champions, having only been present for a year, has experienced rapid teacher turnover. Currently, Catalyst operates at nearly full capacity with a waitlist at the beginning of the school year, indicating its value among parents. Conversely, Champions is not at full capacity and does not have a waitlist. Parents clearly don't prefer it. This decision takes away our preferred after-school care program, crippling our ability to make choices that best suit the needs of our children. In the light of these concerns, I urge the board to delay the immediate implementation of the decision for at least 1 year. This will allow for meaningful discussion, exploration of alternative solutions, and a thorough assessment of the impact on our children and families. Or number 2, explore all possible avenues to be able to accommodate Catalyst on site, even if that means alternative space allocation. Every effort must be made to ensure continuity, stability, and choice in after-school care providers for our community. This decision was not made in the interest of all the kids currently attending the school program. Thank you for your attention, your consideration, and your commitment to the Montclair community.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Kim Tillion. If you are present, please come to the podium, or if you are joining virtually, please raise your hand. Kim, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay. Hello. Yeah, thank you for the time. I want to say congrats to all the teachers, especially Haley Juarez. My son, Evan, is benefiting from being his TK teacher this year. So congrats to all the teachers. Just wanted to echo everything that Georgiana just mentioned. I have 2 kids in the Catalyst program at Montclair, and we've definitely benefited from the great service that they provided. And we're very disappointed to hear that the decision to cancel the program without consultation of the parents who are paying for the service. We definitely want to consider keeping the Catalyst program around, especially for the duration of the contract that they have. And if the option exists, to keep in their current space with the current teachers, because these teachers have been with Catalyst and Montclair for many years. One specific teacher, Ted, has been there for 14 years. And he was deeply saddened to be notified that this would be his last year at Montclair. Our kids love these teachers and are very, very comfortable with them. And it just seems unfortunate that this decision was made without considering all of the options or even consulting Catalyst to see, what could be done. So I think Jordana had a lot of great data points about how the decision was made. Ultimately, it seems like it was not transparent, the rationale that the school board had for making this decision. We had to kind of uncover it as parents to see that potentially it was monetary driven and not for some of the reasons that were disclosed to us. So I think that was unfortunate, as well as the communication that was released was originally from Catalyst without any indication of how we would get coverage as working parents who really do need that after school program. So again, that was disappointing to see how it was handled. At this point, knowing we can't kind of go back and solve for that, I think at least at a minimum to be able to continue with the Catalyst next year. We were all enrolled with Catalyst. We had already enrolled for next year, and kind of knowing that that was going to be a steady option for our kids. We also appreciate that Catalyst teachers, because they have such tenure, our kids have that stable and reliable teachers. Whereas, what we've seen with Champions is that's not the case and that there's been more turnover. So I think that also has really concerned us as parents. So anyways, appreciate, you all listening to our concerns and would really like this to be reconsidered and kind of hear from all of the parents that have petitioned to keep Catalyst open. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Our next speaker is Laura May Sarusi. If you could come to the podium.
Hello, everyone. I had a speech prepared, but a lot of the points were already made, so I don't really want to double back on some of that. But just want to say that I'm also a Catalyst parent. I have two kids that go to Montclair, kinder and second grade. We've been there since the start of my second graders kindergarten career at Montclair. And the teachers in this program are veterans. They are committed. They're dedicated. And I think it's interesting to be having this conversation on a night when you're acknowledging all these wonderful teachers that are in the district, because I feel the same way about the aftercare program that a lot of, I'm sure students in the regular classes feel about the teachers that were honored tonight. And I think that this decision is really just kind of casting them aside. And it's really concerning that this was decided behind closed doors and that there wasn't, sort of a parent-teacher initiative or something to kind of get conversation going, or maybe take a poll or to kind of understand how many families are really needing aftercare and how many families are looking for care. Because I do understand one of the things our principal, Miss Maiden, shared was that, they had looked to Catalyst to expand their program and that they weren't willing to do so at the time. And I think that they were having a hard time getting staffed up after the pandemic. And so I think there was some miscommunication about Catalyst maybe coming back and being able to expand in the end. And so now we have the situation where there's two programs side by side. And as Georgiana already said, one of the programs, Catalyst, is completely full and has a wait list. And the other one that you're looking to keep is the one that is under enrolled right now. And that would be a sign that people aren't interested in having that program on campus as much so as they are Catalyst. So I think that it would be great if you could, consider this and consider our feelings on this and maybe include us in the discussion. And I know one of the parents graciously took their time to investigate some of the paperwork behind this. And, they found that there was a contract that Catalyst had signed to lease space till 2027. So I think at a minimum, it would be the right thing to do to let them continue with their current lease and then maybe circle back with a parent group and discuss the possibility of expanding Champions, because I understand that at the end of the day, we're trying to get the most kids aftercare as possible. And I just don't see why we can't have both programs and make it happy, and fun for everybody and keep some of the teachers that we love. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there are 42 parents or families who have signed a petition that I think was shared with one of the parents met with Superintendent Stacy Yao earlier this week. So there's only a few of us that are able to speak right now, but ironically, those are the parents that need aftercare the most. They're working parents that aren't able to come to things like this at 5 p.m. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our final speaker is Mara Abu El Hijab. If you could raise your hand. Go ahead, Mara, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm able to unmute myself. Thank you so much for this space to voice our concerns and just for hearing us, and congratulations for all the teachers, for all our awesome teachers in this amazing district. So I'm also a fellow Montclair parent and a Catalyst parent. I have two children. One is third grade and another one is a first grader. So we started during COVID, and to be honest, Catalyst teachers have made us feel the sense of community before we even met anyone else at Montclair, just because everything was over Zoom. These teachers are very dedicated to our children. They're devoted. They work with, they actually work on their challenges and they strengthen their strengths. They're basically veterans teachers, and we were so very sad to see how this chapter is gonna end. So me and multiple parents, we are hoping you would reconsider this decision because of many things that have been already mentioned. The communication was very surprising to many of us. We feel part of the district. We're very active school. We're very active in the district. I myself was in the wellness committee for 2 years. I am a very active member, and many of us are the same. So the feeling was when this decision was made without involving any parent, it felt a little bit disengaging. And I know this is not what this district is about. We're our community, and I know we want the success of all our children, and we respect all our teachers. And this is the least we want for our Catalyst teachers as well. So because they have known our children are actually very sad. Many of them, it is affecting their wellness, and it is a topic that they bring at dinner table. And I don't want my 10-year-old and my 6-year-old to be worried about the school, multiple teachers next year. We do have to work full time as similar to many parents. So I do hope that this decision would be reopened, and I would hope for parents to be sitting at the table when these decisions are made, just because you have always been great at involving parents in the community, and I would expect the same for topics like that. Everything else have been said already. Thank you for considering our request, and we hope to hear more updates soon.
Thank you, Mara.
I did see one of our previous speakers join now, Nicola Borisov, if you could raise your hand. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Nicola. You should be able to speak.
Hello. Sorry for not being able to come in person. I kind of initiated some of this effort because I feel that the decision that was made was not with the best interest of the kids in mind. A decision like this to interrupt a program that has more kids and replace it with a program that currently has fewer kids at this kind of late stage, after the board approved in 2023 the extended lease for Catalyst at Montclair until 27, just seems like an unusual kind of decision that I don't agree with. I'm concerned that this change of forcing 70 kids from one provider to another provider basically results in like $700,000 a year going from one place to another, and over 10 years that's $7 million. And I didn't feel like the arguments for why the decision was made make sense to me. Like, Catalyst currently utilizes pretty fully the space they have, and some of the decision that we were given is that this will somehow expand the amount of after-school daycare at the school, which would not be possible since they're already at the capacity of the space they're given. And I feel like we should be able to find space for 2 programs. I believe in the option for choice. This year, the parents at Montclair had a choice between the 2 programs, and the majority signed up for one, as other people expressed. And so removing the more popular option, like a few days before the end of the school year, just doesn't feel right. So what we want is to keep everything the same for next year. And if the district would like to make a change, we should just discuss the reasoning behind it and how would this benefit all the kids. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That was our final speaker.
All right, thank you. Superintendent's report. Superintendent Yao?
Thank you. I'll keep it brief tonight. We've had so many different recognitions, and just May is our mental health awareness month, and I think it's really important for all of our staff, our students, and our parents. This time of year becomes very hectic, very stressful. Everyone feels a little overworked or a little overwhelmed. And I just really do encourage, under our district priority for that sense of belonging, which really is about connectedness and being a sense of belonging and also taking care of each other. And so I just really stress that as we go through these next 5 weeks, is that we hope that, everybody takes that time for themselves. We'll get through these 4 or 5 weeks. We have promotions coming up, end of year activities. I know there seems to be night events every night, which is just, the exciting part of the end of the year, but also that time that the people sometimes need to just step outside and take a break. And so, I say that wholeheartedly to everyone, our students, our staff, our parents, board members, because I think we all worry about each other. And I think that's what makes our district an amazing district to work at is that we all, no matter what differences, what disagreements we have, we all are able to come together and have a conversation and all are able to take care and look after each other. So I just thought that was really important to share as we go into this home stretch of the year. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Discussion item, the first one is the Montebello Exchange Agreement. Stacy?
So we're bringing back tonight. I know that our last board meeting on April 26th, we had shared a draft of a possible resolution as we're looking at doing an exchange with our Montebello property. So we invited Terra Realty back tonight, and we do have the resolution and moving forward with this exchange. This was the property that has been, I think it's been about 2 years that we started the discussion on what to do with it. It's never been utilized by the district for any classroom purposes. It was acquired back in 2011, I believe. It used to be a one classroom schoolroom. Gorgeous property, gorgeous area. Probably not the most popular for a lot of people because you have to drive up a windy road. And so, you know, in the board, as we're looking at our assets and know the importance of holding on to property, this is one that really had never been utilized. And so we did secure the services of Terra Realty to look at what are some other options. So I'd like to invite Mr. Sheldon up to the podium.
Welcome back.
And it's good to be back. Thank you, Superintendent Yell, members of the board. Again, my name is Scott Sheldon with Terra Realty Advisors. Barry Schimmel with Terra is here also. And to follow up with what Superintendent Yao said, the information tonight is informational only. And so if we could do the next slide. So, and it's hard to read on that. Hopefully on your computer screen, it's a little bit easier. So real quick, it is actually in 2009. Superintendent. Thank you for and the district acquired the property through a lapsation, which is the old Montebello School District basically ceded the property to the Cupertino School District when they went out of business or away. So that was kind of the start of Cupertino's involvement with the site. In 2022, the board selected a 7-Eleven committee, and they looked at this site among other sites as possible surplusing. That was approved in 2022. And then in 2023, we were directed to go out and take a look at what the value of the property would be to the district on a monetary basis, which we did. And we went through a process of engaging a real estate office, a local real estate office in the Cupertino, North Santa Clara area. We went through a process of through an RFP. We ended up selecting Keller Williams, Cocotan, and then they went through a marketing process. And then in 2023, we received 2 different offers on the property, and both basically wanted to use the property. It wasn't going to be something to speculate or whatever on. And then so in 2024, we negotiated between the 2 offers, and here we are in 24. We've come to a recommendation for the board to consider in terms of one of those offers. And I'll also preface that what we've always do and we always recommend for school districts is not to sell property, but to exchange property. So this was marketed and done completely on an exchange basis. That way the district ends up with another asset that they can either generate money with or whatever. That's the goal. So next slide. So briefly, the property is a little over 3.5 acres. It's up off of a fairly windy road. It's in the county, not in this incorporated city limits. The improvements on it are very portable buildings. There's the playground, the old playground there, and then there's also the original schoolhouse, which has a historic designation in the county. So the utilities are there's a well. It's a septic system for sanitary, and power is supplied by PG&E. So there's some pictures here on the slides here that show some of that, but I believe most of the board, if not all the board, have been on the site. So then next slide. So that we received, as I mentioned before, two different offers. I'll just hyphenate this. One is the Lee Wang offer and the other one is the Chopsticks offer. So we started out with both of those and we asked for, better offers from them, from their original offer. And we received one additional offer from Chopsticks. The Lee Wang made us an additional offer also, but then we went back and negotiated again over a period of about 3 or 4 months. And we had listed the property for $1,998,666. And the Lee Wang offer came up to $1,999,666. So they are paying full listing price. And this was the same price that was for both brokers, their best estimate of value. And again, it was marketed very, very heavily, not only locally, but regionally and internationally. So there was a lot of exposure on that. So where we are now, and and the structure of the overall structure of the note is, or the transaction is, again, I'll round it $2 million because it's easier to say. The buyer will be putting down as an exchange. The buyer will be paying as their initial deposit approximately $400,000, and that will represent a interest payment, prepaid interest payment. There will be a note for $2 million, and the interest of $400,000 basically represents 3 years of interest payments at 6 2/3% interest, and that will go to the district. So the note will then get exchanged, and the district will end up with a note, and then we'll end up with a prepaid cash, and it's a 5-year note. So next slide. Again, this is a quick diagrammatic flow of how the exchange would work. Again, there's going to be 3 parties to this process. There's going to be obviously the district, there's the buyer, and then there's an accommodator. So the district will actually transfer the property to the accommodator. They will then turn around and sell to the buyer, the Lee Wang group. And then they will turn around the accommodator and trade the note and the cash back to the district. That's the essence of it. And again, it's a 3-party transaction in terms of an exchange, very, very common. And again, what the district will end up with is, in essence, $133,000 a year in income, and that's interest income, that's general fund. And then there's still a note of $2 million. So on or before the end of 5 years, that will be paid off, and the district will get that, and then it can exchange that for another piece of property. So with that, next slide. So our recommendations are, from staff and from Tara, is to finalize the exchange agreement, and also finalize the resolution of intent, and then authorize staff to bring that back to your next board meeting in 2 weeks. And with that, I know that there's a resolution of intent to exchange. That's a legal process that the school districts need to go through in order to accomplish this. And that is part of the packet also. But if I can ask Chris to comment a little bit on that.
Sure, thank you. Can we pull up the resolution attachment? I just want to call to the board's attention that the draft resolution that we had shared with the board at the last meeting is essentially the same, with one exception. We have added a provision on the second page. It's under section 6, and let me call it out. Section 6 says, the board hereby, again, upon approval of this intent to exchange, the board hereby declares that the proceeds generated from the exchange transaction shall be reserved for non-personnel expenditures and shall not be available for salaries, bonuses, or any other compensation. So although Scott mentioned that the monies go into the general fund, this is some additional stipulations that I think the board had asked us to consider, and so we've included that in the resolution. So that's the change to the resolution that you saw last time. And then we'll entertain any questions that the board has.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Chris. This is a discussion item, so let's start with questions and then we can move on to comments. Does anybody have any questions for Chris or for Scott? Jerry and then Ava.
All right. Hi, welcome back. So at the end of this transaction, the district's going to own this note backed by the deed of trust. then presumably sometime within 5 years, let's say in 5 years, this note gets paid off. And now we have the 2 million in hand. Are there any legal restrictions on what kind of property we can acquire with this 2 million? Or I was just wondering, I'm thinking 5 years down the line, the note's been exercised, we have the 2 million. Can I go get a Taco Bell with it, or do I have to buy another piece of land, or are there any restrictions?
No, it's very similar to how the regular industry works. As long as it's a real estate related asset, then that is the underarching or overarching, what you need to do.
Okay.
Obviously, you want to acquire something that's going to give you a stable form of cash flow. And again, that's that would be, but other than that, it can be land, it can be buildings, it can be deeds of trust, it can be all those kinds of instruments that are related to real estate. And again, that would be what you would do upon receipt of that. So again, what you are doing is you're creating, again, over a period of time, you're creating a source of revenue, but you're also hanging on to the asset. So it's not like you're getting rid of it, you're just getting another asset for it.
It's just that in the next 5 years, rather than the form of real estate, it's in the form of this note. But
Correct.
5 years later, we could, the future board has the option of turning it back into some sort of instrument as long as it's real estate related.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Phyllis.
Eva?
I'll start with the first question I had. Thank you for being here, and I really appreciate especially slide 5 to kind of have it out how the three-party exchange structure works. My question is, you mentioned that the funds would be journal funds, but then I am hearing the new clause that will put in, would the funds from like the first payment of 441,000, would that go into like the general building fund that you had?
No, it's general fund. It would go into whatever account, Chris would put it in, but it's not restricted. It's not restricted funds. Correct.
And maybe it's a question for Chris, because you mentioned before that any of our rent that we have on other properties that we have owned, it goes to like a building fund.
Correct. All of our current leases, the board, by resolution, had directed those revenues to go directly into the building fund. So we could apply the same direction from the board to put those funds into the building fund.
So currently there's no category for it.
No.
Okay. That was my question.
Okay. Satish?
Yeah, so I think I know we discussed this multiple times, but just at least I want to make it a little bit more clarification. Scott, I know this is a big property in terms of, at least in the paper, like in terms of the acreages and things like that. And when we put it in the market, we have not got much of traction in terms of interest, like, the number of parties who came up, as well as the pricing for the offers were not that very impressive. Would you be able to explain it for the benefit of everybody that why, in generally, from your view, this was not, a high price that property?
Well, okay, yes, and that's a very good question. So, and high price is always a relative term. So again, when we went through the initial process of engaging a broker, we asked all of them to give us an estimate of value. They all came in that $2 million range and said, you can list it for more, but that's probably where it's going to sell. So I will give you my perspective on why that is, because I agree with you when you look at the property. I mean, it seems like it should sell for more money, but it does have issues with it. The first one is the access. So if you're looking at something from I want to get somewhere really quickly, it's not really one of those places. And again, as you start restricting what you can do with something or how people feel about something, it has a direct correlation to what it's worth. So, and again, it's going to be worth different things to different people. The other part of it is that, there are no municipal services. So that's going to eliminate people. It's, not everybody is going to want to have a water well that's dependent on, is the water there or is it not there? It's not like, if I live in a subdivision house and I turn on the water and I've got a pretty high confidence level that water's going to come out. And it's the same thing with your septic system versus a sanitary municipal system. So again, and I've had that before. it's an additional thing that you have to do and take care of. You have to maintain it. You have to pump it. You've got to do all these different things. And not everybody's going to want to do that. So the other thing is it's in a high fire area. So that's going to limit some people's ability to do things with it. Either that or the insurance is going to be very high. And I know that for a fact because I just got my insurance bill for next year. And I was very thankful that I actually got it and very upset that how much they raised it. So again, in looking at all of that, that's probably the biggest part of why it didn't sell for $10 million or whatever, it might have sold for. So it's location, it's accessibility, it's utilities, it is, what can I do with this? And then what other things do I have to deal with on that? So that's my opinion of why it is where it is. And again, I never want to believe my own story. So that's why you always go out. We went out on an RFP. We went and tested it in the marketplace and we got offers and we had to push these people to get back to, the $2 million price range that we had on that. So again, that tells me that's the market.
Thank you very much for the detailed explanation.
Sylvia, do you have a question?
My question was actually the same as Satish's question, but it was kind of the opposite side of the coin in terms of why aren't we keeping the property? I think the answers are pretty much the same as what you said, but maybe because I know that was something that we had been also entertaining in terms of keeping the property and perhaps using it for programs or some other and we were entertaining all sorts of different options. And so maybe again, detailing why some of those reasons, and maybe that's not you to answer, maybe that's Chris to answer. I'm not sure.
I can answer that question because we talked to staff about this and we talked with the board about this. So from an educational perspective, the first thing that you have to be aware of is that you're subject to all the ADA requirements. And when you look at just the ADA requirements, it's on the side of the hill. You've all seen it. It's don't run too fast down the hill because it's very steep. But then being able to access everything in there, the cost of doing that would be tremendous. The other thing is that, again, you're subject to things like water wells and septic systems. So you're limited in what you can do because it's all based on capacity. So if somebody is going in there and saying, I want to just use this for a single family house, that's an entirely different demand than I want to have 100 students. And I'm not saying it's 100 students, but it's that order of magnitude. The other part of that is the transportation to get there. So if you were going to have, it's not a walkable place. So then you would have to arrange transportation. So I think the combination of all of that, and then the question would come up, well, why don't you just hang on to it and see what the market does? So the analysis that I went through and we shared with the board is right now you've got a cost to maintain it to the district. And that is roughly $50,000 a year. By the time you have to maintain and keep the systems there, you've got to mow the lawns, you've got to, somebody's got to go up there and do all that. But the other thing that's it's not as quantifiable is what is the liability to the district? If somebody gets on that property and hurts themselves, that's a liability. And I can't quantify it, but I know it's there. So is that going to change the value over time? Probably not, because if you say we're going to, on this particular transaction, how it's been structured, the district is going to keep the asset, to keep the $2 million, and they're going to get $133,000 a year in interest. And then if you say right now I'm spending 50, that's really $180,000. So over 5 years, I'm going to walk away from a lot of money. And then the question is, and how I ask it, is that property going to be worth that much money in 5 years or more? Actually, more, because if you're going to take the risk, you want more than that. So again, just rounding it to $200,000, that's another $1 million. Would you believe in 5 years that it's going to be worth another $1 million and you've had exposure and risk? I don't know if I could answer that question. I would be on an island with an umbrella drink in front of me but my sense is that no, because even if you looked at what the inflation rate is and everything else, you say, okay, inflation goes to 5% a year. That's $100,000 a year times 5. That's $500,000. Well, I just walked away from $1 million. So does that answer your question? I'm flipping the hat around on the other side.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any questions. So we've just, oh, Eva.
I have an additional question. I'm hoping that Chris could help clarify is like, how much currently is the cost of maintaining Montebello? And I believe in the past that we have tried renting it out, and what was the outcome of that?
Excuse me. So as far as the operational costs, as Scott mentioned, it's in that magnitude of 50,000. I shared with the board that because it's an unused site, the state requires us to pay an unused school fee. So that's where a largest part of that. Our efforts in the past to lease it out have kind of gone a little, again, not very successful. Same limitations. It's just the location, and that's really the main reasons why we just didn't get any real interest in leasing it out for anything that's long term.
Thank you.
Okay, we've discussed this quite a bit. But if there's anything else that you want to add, I think our charge for tonight is to make sure that we are in agreement with the resolution because it's coming back next time. If we're not in agreement with it, then we need to talk about any changes that we want to make. So, and then we'll go to public comment after that. So does anybody have any comments about the resolution? Jerry?
I'll just be explicit and say I support the resolution. It's hard not to go up there and look at the view and fall in love with a property, and it's one of the most beautiful views of this area I've ever seen. But we're a school district and we have a responsibility to really maximize the use of our assets for the students. And so if I take away the part that, this $2 million is tied up in property, and I just look at, I have $2 million, do I want to put it in an instrument that brings in a revenue stream for the district, or something it's like putting money in a checking account where they deduct $7.95 every month and it slowly eats away at it. And I think the fact that, and I am convinced, I wasn't before, but now that we've had it on the market for so long, I feel comfortable that we are, it's a fair market price, 2 million. Price is always what the market says it is. We have 2 bids, in that area. And so, given that we've looked at what we can do with it, there's not a whole lot. Really, it's not even, I don't even know what we do with it really without putting in additional money at a time when we don't have additional money to put in. The fact that I think that's a fair market value, and the fact that this will get transformed into an instrument that brings in a revenue stream, and perhaps in a few years, maybe we transform that $2 million and park it someplace else. But I think for the next 5 years, this is the best place for us to park that asset. So yeah, I support the resolution. Thank you.
Any other comments? Sylvia and then Ava?
I will echo Jerry. I am also in support of the resolution. I was definitely one of the biggest champions of keeping the property because there's so much, what I saw was so much potential for possible programs for our kids, for educational opportunities, for outdoor ed. We were just brainstorming and dreaming up all the different things. And I want to thank staff for doing the due diligence of checking with the county to see if there's any partnerships, for checking with the local community college to see if there's any partnerships, and really, facing the fact that there wasn't anything viable at any time in the next decade or so. It just seemed like a lot of challenges and a lot of obstacles to making it usable for our students. And in the meantime, it would be costing us a lot of money that could be going directly to kids immediately. And so, I had to say goodbye to it in my head. But I also was thinking about, the cost of maintaining it. And when I did go up and visit with Superintendent Yao, Chris was there, with the leaf blower. Like, he's the one doing the maintenance on the site. And it just shows that there are all of these unquantifiable costs that also go along with it. And so I think although it would have been great, I also think, the way that we have it structured now, the bids that we have, the opportunity to gain some interest right away that can be immediate revenue while also having that 2 million that we can reinvest somewhere else. It just makes sense to me.
Okay, Eva.
I am in favor of going forward with this resolution. We've had the property since 2009. And it's not like our district hasn't been trying to get revenue out of it and having different iterations, as Sylvia has mentioned, and trying to get it rented out. And it's just the location and the fact that I think it's really nice. It was positive because we're inheriting property from the state, taking it in since we're the closest district. And I'm looking forward to see what we can do with the note and how we can generate revenue rather than being in the red at least $50,000 a year. Thank you.
Okay, Satish.
Yeah, definitely. I think my question to Scott was about the money part of it, right? So I think we kept it enough time, actually, like at least last 2 years, various options we were discussing as a board, and we were trying to explore any options to keep it that. And with the low interest on this thing, interest means like the interest for buying the property, we did not get much of things. And other interests, right, from the other organizations, we did not have much. And we also did not have a great plan for us to put something there. So I think just keeping a property without getting anything is definitely, it's not good. And only thing I would have, I would have been happy to get a little bit more money. That's the question which I asked. And but probably that could be the best which we can, because we have kept it enough time. And at least we are getting this 400K for us to use it for the good, and it's in the general fund. However, way or whichever way, if we can use it for the benefit of our kids, that will be great. And it is still not going. We have still 2 million somewhere, and where we can reuse it sometime. So I'll support this.
Okay, good. And I also support, and I agree with Sylvia and Jerry about it. Aesthetically, it's a beautiful piece of property. I don't think it's beautiful for us. I think it wouldn't serve our purpose well. So I think we're on the right path. Okay, do we have any public comment on this?
No, we do not.
All right. Anything else? Any other comments? Superintendent, did you want to comment on
No,
this?
we will bring it back as a consent item at the 23rd.
Oh, consent, perfect. Okay. The next is also a discussion item, and it's the relocation of the district administrative office. So Superintendent, you want to set us up?
I will set this up. So bringing this back, last board meeting, we did have a discussion. We had kind of jumped out there in front and started talking about a loan without really doing a rollback and having maybe a deeper conversation with the relocation of district office. If you remember, last spring, we did have a discussion about the use of Meyerholtz when it became vacated. One of our desires was to look at where we could relocate our district office, because we're currently paying a monthly lease on it over the 12 months. And so we thought we would roll that conversation back and really revisit the whys and look at some different options. And so Director Todd Shimada is here tonight as well to share. We really thought we'd roll it all the way back and say, how did we even end up at the Mary Avenue when we had other locations and other schools that we owned? And so we thought we'd lay the foundation of how we ended up at Mary Avenue. And then really, as we look at different options, we're presenting a couple of different options. There could be offshoots to those options as well. I think for staff, one of the things that we're hoping to get out of this discussion, there are really two different roads on these options. One is if we make the decision that we're keeping our district office at Mary Avenue, that's one road, one pathway that we need to discuss. But if the discussion is that we are going to go ahead and relocate the district office here to Meyerholtz, what does that look like? And that would be a much different discussion. So I think we'll have a good open dialogue, but that is really the hope that we're getting, minimally at least we hope we get from the discussion as a direction from the board today. So I'm going to turn over to Todd and Chris.
Thank you. Good evening again. So again, we've been talking about district assets, and so we're going to talk about one more district asset. Stacy kind of laid the foundation as far as what we're hoping to have a dialogue with the board after, but I thought we maybe just start with why are we even talking about moving from where we are? And so just go back in time a little bit. We are at the Mary Avenue address because of some things that had happened in the past. Back in the August of 2013, it wasn't because we demoed, well, it was because we demoed the old district office, but the reasons why the old district office was demoed was that we built the brand new track and field for Lawson Middle School. So that was all kind of tied to Measure H. So if it wasn't for the needs of creating a new track and field at Lawson, we probably would have still been housed there. But because of that, the district made that commitment to give up that property. And then obviously moving to another location. But the plan was always that was just a temporary move. So the move to Mary was a temporary because of that and until such time. And so just wanted to say that because that was one of the edicts that my predecessor mentioned to me as I came on board was, this is temporary. You'll need to find a permanent home. And I said, okay, we'll find a permanent home. So several years have passed. And so we've been now at the Mary location for about a little over 11 years. We're in a 20-year lease right now. So we're just past the halfway mark. We're leasing about almost 23,000 square feet. Our current rent per year is $470,000+ per square foot. It's about $1.71, which is a very good deal. I have to say that. I get the credit there. Under the current terms of our agreement, the lease will go up again in 2025. So it'll jump from $470 to $548. So about another dollar, up to now $1.98 a square foot. We shared with the board that we have given already our notice to terminate the agreement. Per our agreement, we needed to give them more than a year's notice. And so we had to do so last April. So we've done so. So that's one thing that we've already initiated. We shared with the board and the community that none of the monies that right now that we're paying to be at Mary is coming from the general fund. The monies that is paying that rent comes directly from right now the building fund. But prior to the building fund, it was being paid for by Measure H. But then since Measure H has ended, we have shifted those financial responsibilities to our building fund, which does make appropriate sense. Just interesting enough, so since we've informed our landlord that we have an interest to leave, they have the building, our part of the building up for rent or up for future lease, and they're currently advertising our space at about $3.50 to $4 a square foot. So quite a bit of difference. And I think that probably kind of goes back to kind of what Scott and Barry were talking about, the market. It's probably then the market for that type of space. And there's just a quick fact is that since we've been at Mary, we've already spent almost close to $5 million, or I think $4.5 million in rent. And we don't own anything. We've just been paying rent all that time. So now thinking forward, moving over to Meyerholtz here, this location here, which was a former closed school site. I know Todd's going to talk a little bit about some of the renovation work, and we'll get into that in a second here. But our intent is always when we close the site that we would want to still continue to keep this site as a functioning school site as much as possible. So if there's going to be any renovation work, we're going to try to make sure that we work within the confines of DSA, and so that the campus can still be reused as a school. So even though we're not using 22,000 square feet that we're using over at Mary, we're envisioning using about a little less than 17,000 square feet here. The costs haven't been determined yet for various reasons. Obviously, we're in that initial stage of just looking at the schematics. Our architect that's working with us, McKim Architects, had given us some preliminary costs, and those costs were probably over a year ago. And I think just with the current bidding climate, is probably going to be on the higher end. So when we had originally came back with you last time with an estimate of about $11 million, that was kind of just our first guess as far as what we thought the amount of work could be, the amount of work that we could do. Now, when you start looking at doing this kind of renovation work, we're going to need to finance this. We don't have the proceeds to do that. And so, as I had mentioned, right now, we're leveraging our building fund to pay for our rent where we are currently at Mary. The idea would be is that we would just take what we're paying now to Danza Properties, our landlord, and and turning around and making that as an annual payment toward a loan or a COP. That's the terminology that we would use to finance this. So really, oh, and then I was going to end on this slide here. Basically, is that if we take what we're currently, actually, if we take what we're going to be paying for rent, the 548, that would translate to about $8.6 million as far as what we could actually borrow towards any of the renovations. So really, if we wanted to keep it net zero, we're not paying anything more or anything less as far as either in the form of rent or now in the form of a lease payment. It would generate about $8.65 million that we could use for the renovation. But I know one of the things that we're going to talk about is what is that amount? I mean, the board's going to need to give us some direction as far as whether that's the whole amount or not the whole amount. But I'm going to turn the next part over to Todd, and we're going to kind of walk you through really what the deal looks like.
So before you leave, Chris, do we have any questions of Chris before he?
I'm coming back.
Okay, never mind.
Don't leave me. Maybe we can go now.
You have this on your screens as well? Yeah. All right, so we have 5 pages to the initial schematic drawings that our architects, McKim Design Group has provided us. So based on McKim Design Group's assessment of the current office layout at Mary Avenue, number of personnel at Mary Avenue, they identified that we would need the 4 buildings that are in color to be able to house the staff here. Additionally, on the site, we would also do additional site work on the exterior of the campus, which would include fencing to separate programs. We currently have the Cooper Doodle program here, and also the potential use of the blacktop for additional parking. So on the next page, so building A, that's the building that we're in right now. It would house the superintendent's office, IT technology department, as well as the boardroom where we're at here. The board dais, we would locate up on top of the stage. Technology and superintendent's office would have an interior office built within the classroom space. This would be similar approach to the other departments in the other classrooms in the other buildings. Existing staff room and workroom would remain. It's actually a much larger staff break room than we have at Mary Avenue, which is really nice, as well as a nice size workroom. So that would all remain the same. Option in this room here would be to have foldable walls. This would be able to add additional meeting spaces or collaboration space. And next slide. Building B, the one right outside the door here, would house human resources and business service departments. Similar approach to building A offices and shared workspaces will be incorporated into the existing classrooms. Interior offices will be comparable to size of what are at Mary Avenue currently. Existing storage cabinetry and sinks will all remain. So the school was modernized in 2015, so a lot of the casework cabinetry, sinks, and everything were new. So we don't want to touch that. We want to incorporate it. It allows the offices, those areas, to have additional storage as well as sink too. So we want to make sure those remain. We're going to utilize the long hallways for file cabinets and improving access to for all of our departments. If you're walking around upstairs, especially. With the various locations of cabinets, they're in offices or in hallways, they're all over the place. But this allows us really, really familiar to the departments. It's all consolidated in one space. Next slide. Building D adjacent. This will house student support services and teaching and learning departments. So the approach would be the same as the previous building. Our thought is, we would create a standard interior office and open space setup for consistency and use, as well as construction, so that we're not having individual one-off type of classrooms. We really want to be consistent in our process. And the last slide, building B, that's actually the old Meyerhold's office. So that'll house student assignment and community engagement. With exception of moving an existing swing gate, there'll be no structural modifications needed. So really no work other than paint and refreshing the office itself. The lobby would continue to function as a lobby with access to the other offices or to the site through the current health office. Any questions?
We go back to the first page before we leave.
Okay, let's start. This is a discussion item, so let's start with questions. And then but I wonder, do we want to do a straw poll right away about moving or staying? Because that was a.
Do we have that up on the slide where we have the option? Maybe we could move to that slide.
We'll get there.
Do you want to go through all this before we decide if we really want to come here or if we want to stay at Mary?
Well, I think you're right. I think let's get to the options. Because we don't want to spend any more time.
If we're not going to move, if the will of the board is not to move here, then this discussion is moot.
Okay, right. I just wanted to add on here. So one of the other plans is to take the existing blacktop area where you see the basketball and the volleyball areas. That would also then be parking. So the idea with as many staff coming here, there is parking on site already, but not enough to cover as many staff. And so what we're trying to avoid is having staff park on the street within the community. So we would then also need to do some renovating to create a parking area out there on the blacktop area. So that's all I wanted to say about there. But then let's get to
okay. Let's just do a quick
choices.
straw poll of where we are on moving or staying at Mary or moving to Meyerhold's. So who wants to start?
I thought that would be based on the options, right?
Yeah, maybe we need to go through the options first because I think if we at least go through the options, then that might be a clearer decision to make it for you guys.
All right, thank you. So options, we have an option one. So right now, option one would be moving the district office to Meyerhold's. But within option one, we have an A and a B. And we'll talk about why there's an A and B. So imagine that we want to move to Meyerhold's, but we don't want to do any renovating. Is Meyerhold's big enough to accommodate us all moving from where we are without doing any renovation? And so we've looked at that. So one option would be is to come here and occupy the whole campus, not just the buildings that Todd was referring to. The other option would be is to occupy the portion that Todd's talking about and do some amount of renovating. And then from a revenue generation perspective, those other buildings on the back of the campus, we would possibly lease out. And I do make one correction. I had put down 6 portables. There's actually 8 portables out there. So just to clarify that. So that's option one.
And Chris, could you clarify, or maybe I can clarify, when we say occupy the full campus, that's including those 8 portables.
8 portables
would
and
still remain in the front.
That's why I said whole campus. So, I don't want to say we have to move them, but it's the whole campus. So that's option one. Option 1A, as I kind of alluded to, move into the campus as it is. So no renovating. So option one is to move or move either with renovating the campus or not renovating the campus. Option 1B, as we talked about, doing some renovating. As I shared with you, the loan or the COP could be as much as 8.65. So we can take out a loan, do that amount of renovation up to that amount, or choose an amount that's less than that. So we have that range between 8.6 or less. So that would be the option 1B. And option 2, stay put. So stay put means that we have to rescind our termination request or termination. and continue to lease. We're in the middle of, again, a 20-year lease, so we'll be locked in for the remainder of 10 years on the lease. We're gonna need to look at beyond 2033. Are we gonna continue renting? Are we gonna rent there? We're gonna rent someplace else? We're gonna move somewhere else permanently by then? So those are the kind of the options. And then also lease Smile. So obviously, if we would stay at Mary, we would then look at managing this asset, as we kind of talked about.
I would also add under the option two, one of the things that we would need to consider if we do remain at Mary, part of the larger picture of the move here to Meyerholtz was we were going to relocate the IT department that's currently over at our operation yards, was coming here to Meyerholtz to open up that space to build our central kitchen. So IT, if we remained at Mary Avenue, IT would remain at the operations yard, and we would need to explore one of the other options we talked about for the central kitchen. So just to be aware, you know, I think every option has little outliers on it as well.
Okay. And then just almost wrap things up. So here's just some of the financials between option 1B. I had Dale Scott come back and revise the debt service schedule. And so this is more or less at $8.65 million. The total debt service is about $16.3 million when you take into account interest. That's the total debt service over time.
Over what period of time?
30 years. So when you want to look at it in terms of net present value, the net present value of this this lease is about $10.7 million over 30 years. And the reason why I want to talk about that, because the next slide kind of talks about what is the cost of paying rent for the next 30 years from the standpoint of net present value. So I'm showing kind of two scenarios here. One, because we're already in a lease that has locked terms and conditions, as of 2033, what will be the rent? So on the column on the far left-hand side, I just assume that we're going to still keep paying the 546 into perpetuity, just kind of see what that cost is over 30 years. So if we were to continue staying at Mary and hopefully pay no more than what we're going to be paying, we would be paying out about $19 million over 30 years. And the net present value of that is about a little more than $11 million. Now, the reality is that I don't think we're going to be fortunate to keep paying the same amount of rent for 30 years. And so I just kind of use that example in terms of what they're asking right now for rent. But actually, I'm not basing on $3.50 a square foot. I'm basing on $3 a square foot. So maybe a little bit more conservative. So $3 a square foot would increase our rent up to $8.25 a year. So I just kind of modeled it out, and over 30 years, if that's all we paid, we would be paying close to $22 million over 30 years. And then from the standpoint of net present value, it's about 17 million. So maybe kind of get a sense in terms of cost comparison between taking out an $8 million loan or paying upwards of 19 or $22 million in rent. So the choices. So this is, I guess, we're going to share. So we summarize it on one sheet here. Basically, option one is to move. Option two is to stay. And within option one, we talked about the various options.
I think we'll go ahead and go to questions for the board instead of taking a straw poll. We'll just see what kind of questions people have. So who has questions, Satish?
Yeah.
And then you.
I can ask questions. So one is the let me go to option 1A, that is more building assets. There are two portions of right. The entire versus with the renovation, if you do it, you said that the 8 portables would be able to lease it, right? If you do a renovation, we do not need to occupy the entire campus. If you come to Meyerholtz, you still have about 8 portable space which we can lease out.
If we can if we can only move, I mean, if we can just move into the main buildings that Todd shared with you, we wouldn't be needing those 8 portables out there. But if, and that's assuming we do
Renovation, yeah.
but if we don't do any renovations and we just move into the buildings as is, we're gonna need to spread out and occupy all the buildings, including those 8 portables.
Okay, now let's assume if you're going with the renovation, so how much of the lease amount we can get it for that 8 portables? How much money we can generate from leasing?
I ran at $3 a square foot, let's be conservative. I look at that, I calculate about $270,000 a year.
270,000 a year, okay. Okay. And another thing is also on the, I think you touched upon fencing, right, around this campus. Was it not part of our old fencing plan? Was it included for mayor halls or no?
It was, it was not.
It was not?
No.
Okay. Thanks, I will wait for that.
Ava?
Thank you. I'm on the map on the first one. I understand the 8 portables are probably building I through O. What about building 24, 25, and 26, the existing portable building? Are those ours or are we renting that? You just put your zoom
ones on the
cursor on, yeah, the ones on the bottom, those.
Those are already planned to be occupied by the DO.
Okay, so what
the
department?
ones around the backside, along the far edge.
Yeah, those 333, oh, those are gonna be,
Those are the extra portables.
right, so you're saying there's another department that goes into the one on the far.
Those 3 there on the
Far
bottom
Yep.
left would be.
IT, that was,
IT.
IT was moving into.
Okay. What about the square boxes next to the field behind, like underneath building F, to see the Child Development Center portable building? What are those?
So one of those squares is the current shade structure right now, the eating area.
Okay. And the other 2? Sorry, I'm not
Those are
familiar with the
I
campus.
believe that Cooper doodled the boxes. We don't have a plan to do it.
Underneath.
Adjacent to the parking lot.
No,
Those 2.
so next to the basketball courts, there's those 3
They're not
rectangles.
buildings, they're not
buildings.
buildings.
Oh,
This is I guess it was drawn on the ground or drawn on the diagram here. But one of them is that shade structure that's out there.
okay. And the rest is just blacktop.
Blacktop.
Okay. And then, can I ask another question? All right, the other question is, all these structures, when they're creating these new walls, are they closed walls where it's a wall from the floor to the ceiling, or are they open where there's an opening at the top of these walls that they're putting up?
Yeah, right now it's floor to ceiling. Whether or not it goes above the ceiling where the T-bar ceiling is still to be determined with our architects and how, DSA requirements. But it'll be floor to ceiling.
Okay, because I think that affects the cost, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Those are the questions I have. So
Okay, Jerry or Sylvia? Oh, Jerry, go and then Sylvia.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I have a sort of a basic question, which is why is it desirable to why is it desirable to be in a building that we own? I can imagine maybe it's cheaper, maybe costs are more predictable, maybe buildings that we own are better suited for, district operations than lease buildings. So I kind of want to get at maybe a fundamental question that's in my mind is why you said, when we demoed it back in 2013, the plan is to move to a permanent home. Maybe double clicking on that a little bit. Why is that a good thing?
Well, I mean, it's a great question. I think that's the big question because I think, that what Rick told me and I think how I feel today is that to be good stewards with the resources that we have, occupying an area where we own, where we're not paying anything is probably much better than just paying rent, because over time, we don't have anything other than we had a temporary roof over our house, but we don't have that. But then it will be an ongoing commitment to pay rent. And so that's why I think from that standpoint, we're trying to be the best good stewards of what we have. And so what we're attempting to do is leverage that income that we're generating from our unused properties to pay for this. And then with the intent of not touching one dime of the general fund.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks. And then maybe just one more question is, if we were to lease out Meyerholtz, what would you estimate the income we could get with that be? I know we had an estimate when we did Ragnar's. Would you say this campus, we could lease that out for more or less? Not what we ended up getting, but I know before we went out, there were some estimates just.
Well, I mean, one is a factor of how many square foot. But when you look at the composition of both campuses, they are both modernized. I would say that they're both in the same condition.
Okay.
So one would think that we probably should get somewhere in that same neighborhood as far as $1 per square foot, but it's a matter of how much space.
And this is a larger, I know it's a larger campus overall, but in terms of the classrooms, is it more sort of more classroom space?
There's more classroom space here than
I think off the top of my head, there was 36 or 38 classrooms here as compared to Regnard, I believe was at 24 or 28 capacity.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Phyllis.
Sabine. A technical question first. I noticed with the slide 3 and slide 4. So right now we're leasing 22,000 square feet, but then the need is 17,000 feet. Can you just explain kind of the discrepancy there?
So what we're currently occupying as far as the total space at Mary represents 22,921. But then when you just look at the building spaces, the building areas that kind of Todd walked you through, that's that total square foot number. So it's less.
Okay.
And also to imagine, I think the district office had a bigger footprint at one time. And since we scaled back over time, we're not needing as much space. And so that's why moving here, we don't need 22,000 square feet, even though we have 22,000 square feet in there.
Okay. And then the idea of if we don't do any renovations and we take over the entirety of the campus, because with the schematics that Todd was showing, kind of here's where Ed Services is, here's where HR is, here's where IT is, like, I don't know if you've done any kind of mock-up of what that might look like if we were to not do any renovations.
Yeah, that was something we would follow up with our architects on, but generally to be occupying, the rooms as is, we'd probably go through an exercise of identifying what our staff needs are, in those spaces. I would imagine that some of the shared spaces would still be shared in a classroom or two by departments. In regards to staff that had individual offices, it could be 960 square feet of office space. But what needs are, we'd have to identify that.
Okay. And the current, so the current schematics, if you can jump back over to that window. So like taking the classrooms, for example, in like building E, and so like what I'm seeing is like one classroom would be roughly 3 offices and some shared cubicle space, something like that.
Correct.
And then in terms of DSA, the requirement to keep it, available to be reused as a school sometime in the future. Is there kind of tagging along Ava's question of like floor to ceiling or having some flexible walls, or I don't know, is there, what am I trying to ask? I'm trying to figure out like why, what would be the reason to make it more, for lack of a better word, permanent in terms of some of these structures and walls versus using more flexible partitions to I don't know, make it easier to revert back if needed sometime in the future.
It's one of the questions that Ms. Ava had asked as far as the walls itself. So the walls are definitely going to go from floor to ceiling. Now there's a space above in those classrooms. There's a space, kind of like attic space between the ceiling all the way up to the hard lid of the underside of the roof itself. So we're determining whether or not we have to go all the way up or not. So Mary Avenue, the walls actually go to the ceiling, but don't go all the way up to the hard lid on the second floor. So basically that'll be factors, cost there, as well as if we don't have to go all the way up to the hard lid, that, undoing it would be a lot easier.
Right. I think part of, if I'm hearing correctly too, is the ask of why, if we put a floor to ceiling enclosed versus putting more of the portable dividers would be confidentiality in conversation, so that there would, if you're having a director in the same open space with your office staff, there oftentimes you need to have that space secured where you can have those conversations. And so that would be the reason for the higher, more dense walls, I believe.
And then just to add, so when you look at one room, say, look at the first room up here with HR, not all of these rooms are needing floor to ceiling walls. The majority of these vertical areas are really where staff who work and taking advantage of the modular furniture, where those are just those partitions that are short. But then, as Casey referred to, there'll be an office for the director of HR. That room would be enclosed with a wall that's probably going to the ceiling down. But the rest of the space is going to be pretty much open concept, and just the partitions, the office cubicles will be the only divide.
Okay, so in other words, like those bold lines that I was thinking, like walls, could actually just be like open space, like cubicle level.
Where you see one, so each one of these is a classroom. So here's one classroom here. This is an office, and this is all kind of open space. So this is where the cubicles would go. So there wouldn't be anything other than just a cubicle setup in that space. So we wouldn't have to do any major renovations as far as walls go. We still have to bring power and data to those workstations. So that's part of the renovating of those spaces. But it's just going to be those offices and those conference rooms that we would need to do some additional floor to ceiling walls to provide that privacy.
Okay, thank you. That helps me read the schematics a little bit better. I could go on, but I'm going to let you ask.
I just have one question, and that is, you mentioned leasing for $3 a square foot if we stayed at Mary. Do you think there's any negotiation there? There's a ton of office space available around the area. I can't believe they wouldn't be willing to negotiate, but I don't know. What's your sense?
I mean, my sense right now is I don't know what the merits of negotiating with them right now. Since we've given them our notice, if we are going to stay, I need to go back to them and see if they will allow us to rescind it. But should we stay, where will rents be in 11 years?
Right. Okay.
Maybe if I could interject and ask, can we put up the slide that had the options on it one more time before we go next round? Because I did want to put this out as something to consider as your, I think it's the last one that has them side by side. Sorry, I don't have the number, but there for the choices. So one of the other things that I alluded to at the beginning, under our option one, we have the no renovations and we move over here as is, take up the whole campus. Or the other option is that the 8.6 million, which equates to what we're currently paying as a yearly lease over there, we just transfer over to here. the other option is somewhere in between that. Because as a board, we may, I know that one of the goals is we're continuing looking at how do we enhance our revenue stream and so that we have the ongoing revenue. And is there something in between there where we don't do the full renovation, but there's more of a partial renovation, and so it's a lesser amount loan. So maybe we only are paying 300,000 a year to pay off the loan, and the other 250,000 then becomes basically revenue coming back. Or do we go for, a shorter term loan that pays off quicker? So there are some other options within there too. I don't want you to think that it's either, we do the full story or, the nothing story. There's always those options that we could consider in between there. As you can see, we're sitting here holding a board meeting in this space, and this works effectively for, it's not a beautiful boardroom, but by gosh, it's much better than what we have right now. And so, I think that's, once maybe we get to between the 1 and the 2, that might lead into more of under that number 1. What are some of those other, in-betweens that we could possibly explore? I don't know about you, but these little black bugs are just swarming.
They're terrible. Okay, shall we go back around? More questions or discussion? What are you guys thinking? You have more questions?
I think I can ask one more.
Okay, go ahead.
So one is, I think you asked that a little bit, but have we explored any other option or a new other, neither there nor here, a kind of a third, some other place? Have we looked at where we can lease?
The question is, have we looked at other places to lease?
Which could be cheaper than Mary, or which could be?
I haven't looked for any other places. I very much doubt that if anything's less than, I can probably defer to Scott as far as what we're paying now per square foot, if it's a good deal or not.
So one of the things, again, Scott Sheldon, Terra Realty Advisor. One of the things in terms of the market goes up and the market goes down. That's the only thing that you can call for certain. Before, 5 years ago, the market in the Sunnyvale area was closer to $5 per square foot. It's gone down because the demand has gone down. But again, that goes up and down. And so, finding other space outside of, say, another school district or another school site, again, right now, I think you're pretty safe to say that you're in that $350 to $4 square foot range if you're looking at other office spaces. And again, there's going to be renovation that would be involved in that too. So that's you would typically get an allowance for some of that, but not a lot. So there would be additional costs on top of that. The other thing that I wanted to point out in terms of the existing space, and it was brought up, right now you're leasing 23,000, is that right? You're actually only occupying 20,000 of it. What you're doing, buildings, you have a lobby. Now you may not walk in it very much, but you're paying for a prorated share of that. In fact, you're paying for probably about half of it. So that is another expense. That's the reason why it's called a building load. So bathrooms, lobbies, that is prorated in every office building. And a real efficient building is 15%. A real inefficient building is probably 20 to 25%. So even if you take, it's about 15% probably, that's your additional 3,000 square feet. So you're occupying 20,000. And so when you look at a space like here, you're occupying, let's say 17,000. Well, you don't have the load. So because everything is already incorporated in. So that's another say. And if you go into another office building, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to pay a prorated share of all of the common area spaces. And developers are really, really good about that in terms of charging that. So, and you still pay the same rate. You pay if it's $3 a square foot or whatever it is. So the last thing that I had, we did a very extensive leasing study for Santa Clara for all the school districts and what they're getting. And I know that the Regnart site, you got a very, very good value on that, excellent value on that. And the trick in that is always finding the right person and that falls in love with something. But my estimate, because Regnart was the Cupertino address, this is a San Jose address. That is different. And so my estimate would be probably, if you got $5 a square foot, which is what you received, you're probably closer to $4 a square foot, and that would be leasing the entire space. So again, that wanted to bring those points up in terms of how you're looking at the alternate uses of what you can use for this and this space. Anyway, I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Okay,
yes.
One more question.
Okay.
So when you say there is option 1A as it is means it is just as it is, or you consider doing some very minimal stuff on that? Or as it is, can we move it, first of all?
Well, as is as is. To doing some amount of renovation work, it's either gonna be 1B 1.2 or 1B 1.1, right? So 1.1 is up to 8.65. Anything less, as Stacy mentioned, would fall into that category of 1.2.
Okay, so as is nothing, we just move, put the tables and start working, that's it. Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions before we go to discussion? Okay, so again, our charge is to sort of give direction tonight. Do we want to stay at Mary? Do we want to come here? And if we want to come here, are there any constraints on what we want to do coming here? So who wants to start?
You can go in the same order.
Satish, go ahead.
Okay, so I like actually, okay, first of all, I like to use our property. Okay, there are two reasons. Let me justify that. One is I prefer we using our thing rather instead of inviting somebody else to use our property. That is my view. Okay. And there are two risks part of it. If you give to a third party, a school kind of things, we are probably at least translation worked out very well. Actually, they are not eating our student base. Actually, they have much less than 5% or very limited number of kids from CUSDs there. But if you give to any other, probably I'm afraid, or I see some risk there that can impact our student population. Okay, that's number one. So you are inviting a private school here if you do that. So second thing is, I think Chris already said that, you know, at least we know it's our property, so that cannot be having a variation in terms of lease or, you know, the cost of it. It's pretty much our own property. Okay, so based on these two reasons, I would like to, my first point is, I would like to move here. This is my thing, unless we find a cheaper place, which I asked the question previously. Okay, cheaper than what we are doing. So from the cost perspective, I like Stacy's idea of like 1.2. That is, it should be less than 8.65. Means like we are, in a way, we are showing that by moving here, we are saving money. Today, if you are giving for 465 and tomorrow 565 there, probably a 300-ish range we are spending actually here. That is definitely, we are saying about 200K there in a way. So by moving here, we are saving into. So we have to find some, my view here is we don't have to do the extensive level of modification renovation, maybe the very minimal what is needed. That's what my first question about as is means what, and this 8.65 could be the highest level, then something in between where we can save money. That's it.
Okay, who else wants to go? Ava, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I am opting for option 1 to move. This is our property. We're going to save money. My biggest thing is saving money. I also have the same concern with Satish. It's like if we are to rent out the property, it's not really about getting how much money we can for the whole school. I understand from our previous conversations when we were talking about Regnart, if we rented like parts of it, we wouldn't get the better value, but also looking at retaining our student population within our district and to keep that going. If we were to move here, I like to keep the cost minimum. I'm not feeling okay on the loans, at least the type of loans that is offered to us now. Because if you look at how much we end up paying at the end, it's double the amount that we have loaned out for. No matter how many years, is it 30 or 15? So if we're making choices, I would from option 1, and then what we do with the option 1, we can go in further discussion. That's why I didn't have any more questions.
Okay, Jerry, Sylvia, who wants to go next?
I can go. So for me, if I'm looking at sort of a window of the next 10 years, I don't know why economically I would want to give up a lease I'm paying $1.90 for to use a property that I could get $4, a square foot for. That seems like, because I think in the estimates of the cost share, what's not being accounted for is the opportunity cost of not being able to lease out this property if we use all or part of it. And I think so originally when we were talking about Regnard, we had estimated, 900K, we ended up getting 3 million. But let's say if I were to stick in, and right now I think I looked up our leases, we're probably, what's about 250, it looks like 230, 250 is how much we're leasing our existing properties for. So even if I weren't using that $4 number, I'm using a smaller $250, $3 number, it doesn't make sense to me to move into something I could get $4 for, $3 for, and give up what's a really good deal at $1.90 that's locked in for the next 10 years. So I think the only consideration, and I guess the other thing is moving here, I'm assuming we're going to have to spend some amount of money. I don't think just moving here with no renovation, that seems to, I'm guessing, I would love staff to comment on this, would degrade the quality of the office space. If you just picked up a bunch of folks who are working office, they're not in a classroom. You have to spend some amount of money, right? And we can talk about what that amount of money is. So I think the way I'm thinking, if I'm looking at the next 10 years, I don't see how moving here saves money overall than just staying put, just because of the arbitrage that we could take advantage of given the lease that we have. So the only reason I would consider moving here is at that year 11, as Chris talked about, is what is that going to be? What's that rate going to be? Now you had estimated $3, maybe it's more, maybe it's less. And I would think at some point, permanently, we want to have a home to have that stability in planning and budget planning. And so the thing I don't know right now is what's the construction cost likely to be 11 years from now? It's going to go up by some amount. Sure, I know it's going to go up, but at the same time, I'm collecting another $1 million or $2 million a year. That's $20 million, at least a buffer, just, not doing that present value and all that. So I think this is where, I need to think a bit more, or maybe get more data on what that will look like. I think a little bit, I'd be interested. It sounds like before to move here, I'm thinking folks are sort of maybe on the low end of what the renovation here is. But again, I'm also looking at what's the least amount of cost for the district. And I'm not convinced right now that tying up this property for office use and then not being able to lease it out actually gives us a better bottom line. But that's what I'm mulling over right now, is basically what on year 11, what that picture looks like. But if I'm looking at the 10 years, I don't know how. I'd be very interested in an argument to understand more of how you could actually save money by being here over just taking advantage of the $1.90 rate we currently have right now. So that's where I am.
Thanks, Sylvia.
So I am in favor of moving to Meyerholtz, and so I kind of can I respond to Jerry's
Of course.
thoughts while it's kind of at the top of my mind? So I guess, I definitely can see the argument for that, in terms of waiting another 10 years, but then it just feels like we're just delaying a decision that we're gonna have to spend that money to move here eventually, because once the lease is up in 10 years or year 11, it will go up. And even though it's $1.90 now, each year it does increase a little bit, because last year it was like what, $1.48 or something like that.
Yeah, our current lease right now is locked into every 5 years is a rate increase. So we're in the last stretch.
Okay, so it wouldn't increase for 5 years.
It will increase in 2025 to the highest amount for the lease of 520, whatever, 547. But after the 20th year, what the landlord will be asking at that time, whatever the market is, I can't tell you what that number is, but I was kind of estimating at $3 a square foot what that amount might look like, and it's about $820,000 based off of $3 a square foot.
So it's a flat rate at year 11 to year 20 at $1.90 a square foot. So
until year 30. Yeah,
30. Okay, thank you.
But that could change with
if we rescind, then we're back on the drawing board, right? Or I'm confused about, if we
Yeah.
rescind our,
I am just hopeful that if I had to go back and have that conversations with them and ask them to just allow us to continue with our current
right,
agreement, then that would we be locked into that rate until the year 2030.
but that's a hope. You don't know that that's gonna happen.
I haven't had any conversations
Right,
with them. This is
exactly.
still very fresh.
Sorry, Sylvia, I'm waiting on your question.
So I'll just kind of go through kind of my thinking. I'm in favor of option one and either 1B.1 or 1B.2 or 1B.3, whatever that's going to be. And a couple reasons. I think definitely for the long-term benefit. I think as trustees of the district, we do have to kind of look longer term. We have to look beyond, like Jerry said, whatever the next board's going to be looking at. And I want to make sure that we're on the path for this kind of stability rather than being subject to market changes. I like I'm intrigued by the idea of renting out the portables or whatever is not going to be included in those current schematics. Especially if you're saying that we could be getting 277,000 a year in revenue just for those, what?
It's up
six
$3 per foot.
portables or whatever.
There's eight portables.
Eight portables. Because then that would offset some of the cost that we would be spending if we're spending whatever it is that we're spending, like if the number initially was like 500 something, right? But it sounds like it'll be less than that anyways. And so if there's a lease coming in from leasing this whole, if there is revenue coming in from the lease of the portables, then I see that as kind of like the cost actually is less, unless they go into different buckets. I don't know how that works. But then I'm also thinking about beyond the financial part, which I think is still like the number one thing. I think about the fact that the 7-Eleven committee, when they came to us and they went through all of these options, they recommended that Meyerholtz be used as a district office. I also think about the fact that when we did close Meyerholtz, we know that the community was very supportive. The community here, the neighbors here were very supportive of having a district office here. And so I want to keep that in mind because we know that it was a very emotional decision, 2 years ago to close here. But we know also that we got feedback from those same folks in this neighborhood saying that, a district office would be something that they would see favorably. I think the central kitchen, the domino effect of the central kitchen is also a big thing for me. So if we're able to move IT over here and then give that MOT space to central kitchen, that solves, it's kind of like solving two birds with one stone, right? It's kind of, because central kitchen is something that we've been talking about all year and looking at options to help them expand or give them better facilities. But then also looking at, the survey results from the bond and realizing that it wasn't very high up on the survey. This seems like a really good opportunity to give them a space that we already own without having to do any major renovations or whatever, it would just be cheaper. And then I think about the community benefit, like the fact that we were able to have the Teacher of the Year celebration here, and we were able to have so many people here. The fact that we've been able to do these celebrations, these community-wide celebrations, there are these less hard stats, on why having a place where we can have a gathering as a community is actually a really great benefit. I think about, we could do district-wide events for our students. We could have spelling bees, we could have art shows. I think about the high school district and what they're doing right now with their district office, and they're having this amazing art show right now. You know, and able to display all of the things from their schools in that area. And so it just, I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to build that sense of belonging. And since that's one of our strategic priorities, I really do think that that is something we need to consider, even if it's a little bit less tangible. So I also know that when we were looking at Meyerholtz 2 years ago and looking at and kind of getting a lot of interest from possible leasees, there weren't many that wanted to lease out the entire campus because it is larger. It was more kind of piecemeal, like some folks wanted like some classrooms here and some classrooms there, and it would be harder to make sure that all the buildings would be used. We would end up still having some empty spaces. So I guess that I guess in terms of looking at the opportunity cost of renting out the whole thing, I just don't know what the potential is there. And of course, you know, that was a couple years ago, so it could change, you know. What else? Oh, and then finally, I think it's like when I think about when a new family comes to our district and they have to go to that office building, it's just not a very welcoming environment. Like being able to come onto campus and see a school building and walk into the office and have student assignment right there. It's just, again, going back to sense of belonging, going back to creating a community and a culture of inclusion and care. And I don't know, I just think that there's a lot of these intangible things that would help as long as it makes sense financially. You know, I don't think that those things outweigh the financial aspects of it, but I think that it sounds like there's opportunities to mitigate some of that cost. So, sorry, I think that was a long answer.
Great.
That's
Okay.
good answer.
So I'm on the fence. I'm not usually on the fence, but I am on this one. I believe leasing is not the best idea because I always think it's a good idea to own where you live and where your office space is. But I'm also not interested in 30 years of debt. So I'm sort of, if we can move here with a cost that's reasonable, something in between what Todd showed us and doing nothing with less or maybe no debt, I would be in favor of moving here, but it's financial for me. If we're gonna look to the community like we're wasting money on a district office instead of spending it on kids, then I'm not interested in that. So I would like to see some other plans for this that cost way less.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
In the original, right now we're leasing about 22,000 square foot, and they were mentioning how maybe 3,000 of it's like, you know, the meeting rooms or in the bathrooms and the front office. So that kind of leaves about 19,000, and we really need 16,000, which is for me indicating that the student enrollment has been declining since 17, 18. We're lucky this year that our TK enrollment has kind of balanced us out, that like, you know, we're maintaining. But this shows in terms of square footage that the space that we need as staff has gone down. And what's nice is that if we move to Meyerholtz, we own the land. If there is a need of expanding, we can always, you know, put in another portable or expand in whatever other ways, but we have that flexibility. And we're not locked in paying X amount of square foot per number of years. So this would be an argument for moving to Meyerholtz. In terms of cost, definitely not interested in a high interest loan. I'm hoping that it is from whatever the cost of moving. Maybe one of the questions, I think I remember asking Stacy about this and I didn't write it down, but when we did have to move schools and close down Mara Hills and move the teachers to the other schools or where they were going and closing down Mara Hills and Regnar, about how much were the costs at that time? Just for the
moving
movement,
costs?
moving cost, yes.
I can't give you a ballpark number, but I mean, we had the movers themselves.
Mhm.
We had to set up classrooms that weren't set up as classrooms because the receiving school had additional staff. So I can probably come back with a number provided during the Friday update as far as what we actually spent. So we did track it. We did track actually all the costs related to the school closure, and all those costs were also kind of move related too.
That'd be great because that'll give us a base of what the minimum cost would be. My hope it's less than that 8 million. I'm not sure if that includes like the interest that we end up paying over X amount of time, but definitely is, I like to see the least amount of money that we can spend and also be providing a space that can be professional as well. Because at the cost of what is estimated now is too high, and especially with the loans that we have options are way too high. And I don't want to have us owing any money. So we can discuss options, but I definitely want to move.
And I can interject, one of our staff did check when we did our FAQ on information, when we did our school closures and our moving, I believe we estimated that it was about 79,000 per school to move, to relocate.
So I remember we had approved a contract for about that much, but then there was an extension to that contract, which almost doubled it to between 150 to 200.
In terms of estimating amount of time, like it would take to
No,
move.
there was more
The
moving.
actual
cost, there was more moving.
The contract we approved.
The move was more extensive than the initial
Right, I
contract.
remember that. So it was
Okay.
between 150 to
But we
200.
can look at the exact.
Sylvia, you had something else?
So you reminded me that that was another thing that I was concerned about, was the 30-year length of the loan, and possibly looking at if there's any way to do a shorter thing, because I agree with you, 30 years in debt is not something that I would like for us to do. So and I don't know, like to come up with some other options for something shorter or something that's much cheaper.
Well, I mean, we can certainly go back and have Dale Scott look at that, but the question might be still is what's the principal amount that we're looking at? Because if we want to shorten the term of the lease, obviously there's fewer payments to pay it out full time. So the principal amount's going to be less than 8.8 million. So maybe the question is really, I'm speaking for Stacy here, but how much is the board comfortable with as far as borrowing? Whether it's for 30 years or shorter period of time, it's just a matter of how much do we want to borrow.
Rates are going to be cheaper if you borrow for a longer term, right? I think it's the amount of interest you end up paying as opposed to the length of the loan.
It's both,
right?
What we could, what I could propose is we bring back a couple different options. If we are going to go with the option one of moving over here, is to look at different durations of the loan, what we'll look at it from two lenses. One is we'll look at from the loan amount, the loan duration and the cost, but then we could also look at it as if, for example, if you give us the direction that we're currently paying about 500,000 a year for the lease over at Mary Avenue, that you say, out of that 500,000 that we are paying or will continue to pay, we'd like to have 200,000 a year savings, which would give us a 300,000 a year that we operate. What kind of loan would that look like? What the durations would be? So, if your intent is twofold, one, you want a lower loan, but you also want to have cost savings, then we could look at what that option would look like. If you just are more concerned about the loan duration and the amount, we'd look at that direction. So again, there's a lot of different ways to go without knowing, is our intent that we want to save money?
For me, yes.
Definitely save money. I was wondering that. I mean. Do we have to do renovations immediately? Maybe not. Maybe we could save, maybe we could rent out the portables and gain money from there. And the other question that leads to, as I was thinking, is like, most, all of our rent currently is coming from the building fund, which is, the rent that we have with the other properties that we have. What is the revenue that we are getting in summation of all the properties that we have?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
That might be a good thing for
I
us
think
to keep in
it's
mind.
roughly outside of Regnard, I think from all of our other office spaces, I think it was on the lease, it was about 2 million. If we look at all of our.
Annually?
Between 2 to 3.
Okay.
There's a.
Okay, are we ready for public comment?
Maybe just one more, just to kind of, since I had sort of a dissenting opinion here. I think for me, ultimately, it is still about the financials. I'd like to understand a little bit more, whatever renovation plan that comes back. How much is it structural? How much is it just putting on cubicle walls? Because I think for me, it's still what that cost is going to be. I feel like we have a good deal right now. There is stability for the next 10 years. And we should just write that, and maybe, 5 years from now, start looking at then the move and what that looks like. I think there's a trend right now towards lesser office space. We've talked about potentially folks working from home. I don't see any sort of secular trend that's going to drive up demand for office space. That's just my personal guess. I'm not an expert, but ultimately it's going to be about the savings. And so I'd rather not take on any debt. I think I do understand, Sylvia, a lot of the things you talked about are nice to have. What I'm weighing that against is the loss of the revenue from leasing out this space, whether fully or partial. It's a little bit like the Montebello thing. It's nice to have, but at the end of the day, for me, it really comes down to the cost of that. But I totally understand if other folks feel differently, but just wanted you to know my decision is purely going to be driven by the financials. Unless y'all tell me there is basically going to be an upgrade or a sort of a decrease in the quality of office space. The other thing with a central kitchen, I think I think for me, part of that is also tied to, the bond and what we, if it passes, what we do with it and all that. And so for me to lock into a certain course of action before that's resolved, yeah, again, it's just sort of for me an opportunity cost. So anyway, just wanted to sort of, so folks understand where I'm coming from on this, since I have I think a different perspective perhaps. Thanks.
Maybe not so different. With regard to not taking on any debt, I think I'd like to see if there's anything that we can possibly do here without taking on any debt. I don't know if that's even possible, but
We'll look.
yeah.
Can I interject one piece? I mean, we're talking about the debt. So I got to thinking, I talked to Stacy about this. How else can we restore that debt if we were to take out? One possibility is the part of the bond. The bond could actually pay off that debt if that's what we want to include with the bond. So that's one mechanism to pay off it all at one time.
The timing, though, is kind of odd because we're going to make a decision before we know if we have a bond.
True.
So, yeah, that's a little iffy for me. Anything else before we go to public comment?
Just a quick, so the terms of the lease agreement we have with Ganza Properties, if we continue, then we're on the hook for the next 10 years. Is there any sort of termination clause?
There is a termination clause, and we had to exercise that a year ago,
right,
to give notice, or we're locked in until
the next year. Okay, so once we continue that, we're locked in until
34. Yeah, 30.
Thank you.
Sylvia, and then Ava.
Regarding the COPS, the certificate of participation and taking on debt. Like I agree. Taking on debt does not sound good, but at the same time, my understanding is that it's a fairly common practice among school districts and actually school districts in our area. So I was wondering if maybe staff can come back and just let us know, like, what are some of the other school districts doing? Because I feel like I don't want to speak for another district, but I feel like there's other districts that are close that may have some similar kinds of structures. So it'd be interesting to find out maybe. Now, obviously, we're all different funding systems, but it would just be interesting to know, like, what are some of the other things that some of our neighbors have done.
In regards to what kind of projects they're
Yeah,
they're
what kind of
borrowing money for?
yeah, what kind of project they're borrowing money for, what kind of, yeah, like, because I think that the thought of it of doing a COPS is also something new for all of us. But my understanding is that it's,
I mean, in a way we did with the solar. So we took out a lease
yeah.
and we're paying the principal balance over time,
Mm.
but we're using the savings from the energy being generated to pay for that cost. So that's a very similar model.
Right, yeah.
But can we?
Wait, Ava's next.
Oh, sorry.
Are you done, Sylvia?
Yes.
Ava and then Satish.
Thank you. It is very similar, but I think the amount that we are paying in principal and interest is way too much and too much of a dedication of so much debt and so much time. I see your idea of, oh, let's go ahead and take this loan and maybe a bond could be passed. I think that's getting ahead of the game. I think we still need to be financially responsible and see, and I would ask of you as staff to see what is the minimum cost, maybe looking at the walls, not necessarily having walls to ceiling, but maybe 1 or 2 rooms in a building that people can go and do their video calls, because usually when we're on video, it's like being on the phone, getting louder and having that space, but not necessarily having, and then adding cubicles. So it's like, where can we cut the costs that we can still have our staff feel like they're in an office area, but also not aiming for like a Taj Mahal kind of deal, because I'd rather have our even if it's not coming from the general fund, but to spend our money wisely.
Satish.
I think partially you asked that question, but still, if the amount is very low, like what we are talking is this 1.2 option, that is much lower than 8.65, right? So if that's the case, should we be looking into all other options also where we can generate money in general? It could be a bond, or it could be one other ways also, instead of a loan and a long 30 years and other things. Because if it is not significant enough in terms of money, I don't know what is that exact amount, but still, let's say a couple of million or even lower, whatever it is, or very minimal step, then we should probably be looking into some options without taking the loan.
Are we ready to go to public comment? Aaron, do we have any public comment?
We do. We have one public comment. Long Jiao, if you would like to make your way to the podium.
Good evening for the members, superintendent and staff. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share. So yeah, I run a survey, as many of you already know, and it's basically about the potential bond, and also asked about the relocation to the district office. And so far, I received 88 total responses, and 79 of them are from registered voters in CUSD. So yeah, I just want to share the relocation issue because the survey is still going on. Yeah, so far for the relocation, and I use the number for 11 million from the previous meetings, but I'm not sure whether I think it won't change too much about the results. And so far we get yeah, about only 15% of the people said yes, we can spend the money to do the renovation, and 70% of the people they participate. They said, oh, well, no, don't, especially when we are in a deficit right now. So don't spend. That's what most of them say. 70%. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so do you think you have what you need from us?
I believe so. And so I'll just kind of summarize. So we will come back at the next board meeting, focusing more on the option one with something between the 8.65 million to nothing with different amounts, different work scopes. We will do our best to see if we can represent some savings. So we'll bring back with several different options that maybe we can have I'll bring it back as another discussion item so that we can dive in further. Is that okay with the board with that kind of excluding that option one at this point? What I would say is that staff, I will probably ask staff to at least inquire in with the Enza property, because if we are leaning towards that, that would have to be a conversation. I don't want to shut all the doors if that is something that after the next discussion, you guys choose to go back to the staying at Mary Avenue.
So Jerry was the one that was leaning more toward that. Do you need any more information on the staying option?
I think it would be nice to know that's even an option to begin with. If I don't know the terms of the agreement allow us to rescinding the option, the agreement. If that isn't, then that's not even an option for the board, and there's nothing to discuss. So I guess I am interested in that. And yeah, so
Is that something you could explore, Chris? Okay. Okay, are we good with Stacy's suggestion?
Is there a timeline? Is there a timeline by when we need to make the decision?
Well, right now, our notice that was given at Dianza is April of 2025. So that's really the end timeline when, as of now, we would need to be out of our district office at Mary Avenue and relocated over to here. So
if you're
11
going back to what Jerry is saying, in case you are going to stay back, by when we should tell them?
We would need to immediately have that conversation.
Okay.
But Chris is going to explore if that's even possible.
Yeah, okay, got it.
So we could bring that back as well.
All right, then moving along to consent items, I need a motion.
I move consent 7.1 through 7.7.
Thank you, Ava. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sylvia. Roll call.
Trustee Leong.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye. Next, we're on action items, approval of the adoption of instructional materials in world language, Spanish and French. We heard the presentation last time. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the adoption of the instructional materials in world language.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this?
No, they're not.
No presentation.
No presentation. I assume there are no questions, but if there are, we'll take them now. No? Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Leong.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye. Approval of the district expulsion plan. We also heard about that last time. Do you have any comment or any?
We'll need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion. It's, yeah.
So I move to approve the district expulsion plan.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jerry and Sylvia.
No presentation.
Okay. Any questions? Any public comment?
No, they're not.
Roll call.
Trustee Leong.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye. Board activity and committee reports.
I don't have anything.
Gary, did you have anything?
We had wellness committee and both myself and Phyllis attended that. I think this was the last wellness committee meeting for the year, and main focus was tobacco-free campus, mental health, and the wellness policy. It was well discussed, and overall it was a great thing in these 4 sessions through the year.
Yeah, it was good. And I think the wellness policy, they're going to continue to work on it. I think
Correct.
it's coming to the board sometime next year.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that one, and second thing is Hoffman Award, and I think most of us were there. It was a great thing.
Okay,
I think
good.
that's it.
Anybody else? Nothing, Stacy, Sylvia?
Superintendent Yao and I attended the McAuliffe Art Show last week. I think it was their first time back since pandemic.
I believe they had held
Did
it
they have
last
it?
year as
Oh,
well.
they had it last year. It was really great. It was really fun. I highly recommend if you get a chance to go next year. You see all the kids' art and they do like a whole gallery presentation, and it was really just kudos to the teachers and to the kids for all the work that they did. And then also I attended the staff picnic, which was amazing, and it was so fun to see so many staff come and participate and sign up to perform. And it was there were cornhole competitions, there were decorating contests, and just kudos to Aaron and Sandy and all the folks that organized it, Nancy, and all the folks that organized it, because I really feel like it did build that sense of community for our staff.
And some of you went to Hoffman last night to see our Cliff folks honored.
Yep.
It was great. Thank you for
We
going.
both were there.
Congratulations to Clip for winning the
Yeah.
Hoffman Awards.
Congratulations.
Hoffman Awards are one of the big award from the Santa Clara County School Boards Association, and there were over 20 nominations, and Clip was one of 5 schools that won. So
Good for us. Agenda setting. We know that we're bringing back the Meyer Holtz discussion.
And just as for our next agenda will be the May 23rd, which will be our board advance during the day, and then we'll have our regular board meeting in the evening.
It'll be a long day of the year.
So one of these things like this after school program, whatever the CDC equivalent things, like if we can get some update on Friday memo, that'd be great. How that selection process.
You're talking about the Montclair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in general, it could be Catalyst, or it could be Champion, or even YMCA probably. So how the criteria, because these are really operational. We don't involve in that, but we hear a lot of things. So would like to know how it is. So if you can share that information with us, will be great.
Okay, then we are adjourned to closed session. Oh, is there any public comment on closed session? Okay.
No, they're not.
Are there any